Chapter 1380. Fish. The moment it locked onto Wang Chong, the eagle's blood-red eyes flickered. With a flap of its steely wings, it stirred up a gust of wind and shot off, like a shooting star, toward the green mountains in the east. About tens of miles later, that weird-looking eagle with blood-red eyes swooped down from the sky and quickly landed on an outstretched arm under a huge ginkgo tree. Haha, my little darling has found its target. Under the ginkgo tree, a black-clothed man laughed strangely. He gently retracted his arm, and the other hand stroked the back of the eagle, looking into the eyes of this blood-red eagle. Hiss. A moment later, the man in black took in a deep breath, and a blood-red mist began to waft out of the eagle's body. This blood-red mist writhed and danced as if it had a life of its own. It quickly transformed into two streams of mist that entered the man in black's eyes. As the two wisps of mist surged in, a blood-red image quickly appeared in the black-clothed man's mind in the next moment. Almost all of these images were what the eagle had seen before, but they were all covered in a layer of blood-red. Blood-eye. How is it? Where is the target? Nearby, the three bamboo hat men spoke in a cold and aloof voice from behind them. The bamboo hats on their heads were slightly tilted, covering most of their faces. Then they wrapped their bodies with cloaks behind them. They were like bats that had landed on the ground. They were strange, mysterious, and at the same time, it was impossible to see their faces clearly. Haha, I've already seen him. He's on a mountain 25 li to the east. That mountain is covered in banners, so there's no mistaking him. Moreover, it seems like our king of foreign lands has found quite a few allies. At the end of his sentence, the black-clothed man cackled. After pursuing him for so many days and killing many of his own people, in the end, they still couldn't escape his discerning eyes and were exposed. Allies. A bamboo hat man beneath the ginkgo tree raised his head and glanced at Blood-Eye in surprise. Blood-Eye nodded seriously. The flag on their mountain peak has the word Jingqi League written on it. They should be a sect from the Central Plains, and it seems like they have quite a few experts. Shuatong said. Clown. Ignore them. If they dare to oppose us, kill them all. His voice was as cold as a demon god from the 9 hells. The other two bamboo hat men nodded in agreement. As the gods of this world, no matter how powerful the forces of the secular world were, they were nothing more than ants in their eyes, not worthy of their attention. At most, the Zhengqi League was just a slightly bigger ant. Get ready. We'll attack at midnight and kill them all. One of them spoke with a bamboo hat, and he directly decided the entire operation. Meanwhile, at the Zhengqi League base 20-some li away, Wang Chong was seated cross-legged on a boulder, looking down at the mountain. The traces of battle during the day had all been swept away, and from where Wang Chong stood, the surroundings were clean as if nothing had happened at all. Wang Chong slowly looked around and saw the disciples of the Zhengqi League either meditating or resting, their expressions extremely calm. The fierce battle during the day was like a daily occurrence to them, and they couldn't even see the slightest ripple in Wang Chong's eyes. There are many grudges between people and sections. Even the fiercest battle is nothing to them. As Wang Chong continued to look down, he saw at least 5 powerful Righteous Alliance elders seated cross-legged at the base of the mountain, each of them exuding storm-like auras, as if they were standing guard in every direction. Each of these elders of the Zhengqi League had reached the peak of the Saint Martial realm, and some of them were even on the same level as Gao Xianji. The 5 of them stood motionless at their respective positions. Although they said to the outside world that they had just experienced a major battle, and that all of this was to guard against a possible night attack by the Black Een sect and 5 Ancestor Alliance, Wang Chong sensed that the Righteous Alliance was secretly targeting him. These 5 elders stood guard at 5 different positions, forming a cage around him. No matter where he went, he would not be able to escape the eyes of these 5. Miss Song, during the day, I heard from your father that Alliance Lord Song and the Zhengqi League are apparently pursuing the evil emperor, and your senior brother Ji Andu seems to be related to the evil emperor. Just what is going on here? Drawing back his gaze, Wang Chong turned to Song Yuran. The only person Wang Chong knew on the mountain was Song Yuran, so the head of the Zhengqi League, Song Yuani, had simply given him to Song Yuran to receive. Does young Master Qingyang not know? A hint of surprise appeared in Song Yuren's eyes. Heh, you know that I didn't pay much attention to these things in the past. Wang Chong found an excuse to cover up the matter. Fortunately, Song Yuran did not pursue the matter. So that's how it is. As Song Yuran spoke, she quickly began to explain. Around 2 years ago, before the Jingqi League was established, there was a supreme expert of the martial arts world called Zhang Wenfu. He was known as the #1 of the evil path, and the people of the martial arts world called him the demonic emperor. He was extremely powerful and committed all sorts of evil deeds. He had already made a name for himself a long time ago, and through an evil art called the Great Yinyang Heaven Creation Art, he reached a level that many people find difficult to reach. From the moment he made a name for himself, he gathered many experts under his command and became a great demon of the martial arts world that everyone feared. He had a ruthless personality, and he massacred almost everyone in the martial arts world. At the time, everyone paled at the mention of him, and very few people even dared to mention his name. Only my father never feared him. Song Yuren's face was brimming with pride as she spoke of her father. But there's a saying that goes, good and evil will be repaid. It's not that retribution has not come, but that the time has not yet come. Zhang Wenfu's evil art can absorb the energy of others and turn them into desiccated corpses. This has engendered enormous resentment in the martial arts world. And although no one dared to oppose him for a very long time, in the end, he absorbed too many kinds of stellar energy and suffered a cultivation defect. At the start he wanted to hide it, constantly trying to resolve it on his own. But in the end, his disciple discovered it, and the news leaked out. Because Zhang Wenfu had engendered public anger in the martial arts world, the righteous and evil sects worked together. And with the help of one of the evil emperor's disciples, they succeeded in heavily wounding the evil emperor and piercing his dantian, freeing the martial arts world from his reign of terror. That was the greatest event of the martial arts world at the time, and it completely altered the structure of the martial arts world. The Zhengqi League and the Five Ancestor Alliance only appeared after that. And the disciple of the evil emperor, who participated in this matter, was recruited by my father to join the Zhengqi League, my senior brother Ji Andu. My father said that he had already turned over a new leaf, and that he should be given a chance, but I know that he has never changed. Ever since he entered the Zhengqi League, he has been doing everything he can to pursue me, and he even tried to get my father to agree to this marriage. His goal was to succeed my father's position and become the alliance master of the Zhengqi League. I've already refused him many times. Although his heart isn't righteous, my father and the elders have always said that a flaw cannot obscure a jade. He made great contributions back then, but no one expected that in the end, the evil emperor would still be alive. Thus today's events occurred. As she spoke of her marriage, Song Yuren's fair face appeared a little sad and desolate. Wang Chong said nothing, a pensive look in his eyes. Relax. No matter what he wants to do, he won't be able to succeed, Wang Chong suddenly said with a smile. Song Yuran was stunned, and she immediately raised her head to look at Wang Chong, a hint of confusion in her eyes. If I say it won't happen, it won't happen. You'll understand in the future. Wang Chong faintly smiled, offering no explanation. Song Yuran was even more surprised. Although young Master Qingyang had a great reputation, he was not very skilled in martial arts. Moreover, even if he were, he probably wouldn't be able to interfere in the affairs of the Zhengqi League. In the Zhengqi League, only one person could decide her fate, her father Song Yuani. Young master. Song Yuran was just about to ask more questions when she heard footsteps behind her, and soon, a voice rang out in her ear. Young lady, Alliance Lord wishes to speak with you. You must go now. A righteous Alliance disciple had appeared in the rear at some point. I'll be right there. Startled, Song Yuran quickly stood up. Young master, I'll go first. If anything happens, inform me at any time. With these words, Song Yuran quickly left. The surroundings quickly fell silent, and Wang Chong turned his head and continued to look down the mountain. Young Master Qingyang is truly in a good mood. After some time, a gloomy voice came from behind him. accompanied by the rustling of footsteps. A figure began to approach Wang Chong. Senior brother Ji truly has put a lot of thought into this. In order to meet with me alone, you even came up with this method of moving Miss Song away. Wang Chong faintly smiled, not even turning his head. Bzz. The footsteps came to a halt, and Ji Anda narrowed his eyes as he stared at Wang Chong's back, the dangerous light of a viper in his eyes. You're quite bold to dare pretend to be young Master Qingyang in front of so many people. A moment later, Ji Anda coldly snorted as he stared at Wang Chong and uttered these bone-chilling words. Buzz. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Wang Chong's face was expressionless, but his heart was shaken. In the end, Wang Chong had been unable to hide this from his senior brother. The atmosphere instantly became tense. Haha, what is Lord Protector saying? Wang Chong faintly smiled, his face unperturbed. Everyone in the sect knows that young Master Qingyang's martial arts are lacking, so his guards' superb martial arts were all taught by young Master Qingyang. The two of them are inseparable, and Meng is inseparable. I've never heard of young Master Qingyang moving alone, and I've never heard of him having a guard with him. Junior sister believed you with just a few words, but do you think that all of us are blind? Ji Andu approached Wang Chong and examined Wang Chong with sinister eyes. Chapter 1381. Wang Chong inwardly smiled. As expected, his senior brother was not that easy to convince. The identity of young Master Qingyang might have been fooled by others, but it might not have been fooled by him. But Wang Chong was in no rush. It seems like Protector Ji is still very prejudiced against me. Didn't I already tell you when Alliance Lord Song was here? We were attacked by bandits, so we split up. If Protector Ji is interested in my guard, it won't be long before you see him. But this one is helping the Jingqi League. So why is Protector Ji still so suspicious of this one? Is that really all? Wang Chong faintly smiled. Buzz. Upon hearing this, Ji Anda's expression flickered. A cold and sinister aura erupted from his body, making him seem even more dangerous. You're quite bold. Now that junior sister isn't here, are you not afraid that I'll kill you? Ji Anda's expression grew colder and colder, his index and middle fingers curling, as if ready to strike at any moment. But Wang Chong remained unmoved. The 5 elders of the Jingqi League are at the base of the mountain, and the Alliance Lord is at the summit. There are also several hundred disciples of the Jingqi League on the mountain. If Protector Ji wants to kill me, feel free to do so. Wang Chong said. His face was calm and relaxed, as if he didn't care about Ji Anda's threat at all. Ji Anda's expression darkened, and he flew into a rage. This bastard had nothing to fear. Wang Chong, on the other hand, had a calm smile on his face. Song Yuanyi had arranged for 5 elders at the base of the mountain. Although this made it impossible for Wang Chong to silently leave, it also made it impossible for Ji Andu to attack as he pleased. If he were to be ambushed and injured while under this sort of defense, he would become the laughingstock of the world. This was essentially a form of protection for Wang Chong. Ji Anda stared at Wang Chong's back, his eyes flickering. Wang Chong's words truly had left him feeling a great deal of apprehension. But a moment later, Ji Anda seemed to think of something and began to laugh. So what if you're young Master Qingyang? Do you really think that I can't do anything to you? An extremely dangerous light flashed through Ji Anda's eyes. He flicked his finger. Swish! A sharp sword of energy stabbed toward Wang Chong's right shoulder. He actually disregarded everything and directly attacked Wang Chong. But a moment later, whoosh! In a flash of light, Wang Chong's body flickered, as if he had long since anticipated Ji Anda's attack. With a raise of his hand, he dodged Ji Anda's attack by a hair. You still want to hide? Ji Anda's entire body exploded with killing intent. Guardian Ji, don't tell me you've forgotten who I am. Wang Chong stood 7 or 8 paces from Ji Andu, his robes flapping in the wind as he spoke. Ji Anda's heart skipped a beat. Young Master Qingyang was an expert in all martial arts, and knew all the martial arts of the world. If he could command the disciples of the Jingqi League to deal with the Blackeen ancestor, he naturally could dodge Ji Anda's attack. Guardian Ji, I helped you out of goodwill, and it was your Alliance Lord's will that I remained in the Jingqi League. Since Guardian Ji is so dissatisfied with me, it seems that I can only bid Alliance Lord Song farewell. Wang Chong faintly smiled and raised his voice. You're threatening me. Ji Anda's expression chilled. And just when he was about to strike again, he heard a harsh shout. Guardian Ji, what are you doing? Young Master Qingyang is an honored guest of our Zhengqi League. You cannot be rude. At this moment, an elderly voice spoke. A few moments later, heavy footsteps could be heard approaching Wang Chong's group. Ji Anda turned his head and saw that an elder of the Zhengqi League was striding toward him. Ji Anda's heart skipped a beat, and he grimaced. Other than the 5 elders at the base of the mountain, there were also several elders patrolling the base. Ji Anda was completely focused on Wang Chong, so he didn't pay much attention to the footsteps. Little could he have expected that Wang Chong had already predicted this, and had intentionally raised his voice to bid farewell to Alliance Lord Song, to lure him over. Consider yourself formidable. Ji Anda knew that he could no longer probe Wang Chong, so he immediately pulled back his finger. Elder has misunderstood. Young Master Qingyang has shown kindness to our Zhengqi League. I saw that he was alone, and only came to take a look. Young Master, let us chat another time. After saying this, Ji Anda began to walk up the mountain. Young Master Qingyang, are you okay? The Zhengqi League elder immediately walked over and asked in concern. It's nothing. Protector Ji seems to have misunderstood me, but I'm fine now. Wang Chong indifferently said. Nearby, Ji Andu, who was already 50 or 60 paces away, suddenly felt his face twitch. Oh! The Righteous Alliance elder slightly frowned, a look of confusion on his face. If Wang Chong wasn't willing to speak, there was nothing he could do. After exchanging a few pleasantries, he turned and left. On the summit, Ji Anda stood in the darkness and glared viciously at Wang Chong. Wang Chong was well aware that this matter was far from over. Since Ji Andu had dared to move Song Yuan away and openly appear in front of him to threaten him, there was assuredly more to come. You're seeking your own death. As this thought flitted through Wang Chong's mind, his eyes turned frigid. Wang Chong quickly calmed down and began to adjust his breathing. After some time, while Wang Chong was adjusting his stellar energy, he suddenly felt a burning sensation in his bosom. At the same time, a faint green light emerged from Wang Chong's chest. Although it was not very bright, it was extremely eye-catching in the darkness. Wang Chong reached into his bosom and took out that object. With just a glance, he grimaced. He raised his head and quickly scanned his surroundings. The night was quiet and nothing could be seen. Only gusts of wind whistled as it swept past from above. Everything seemed the same as before. But Wang Chong knew that everything had changed. A crisis was lurking, ready to strike at any moment. Thish! With a quick decision, Wang Chong stood up and walked higher up the mountain, vanishing in the blink of an eye. When Wang Chong left, not many people noticed that not far from the foot of the mountain, there was a small figure. A figure dressed in black was hidden in a dense treetop. Only a pair of eyes could be seen, sizing up the mountain range in the night with an incomparably sharp gaze. The middle of the night is the best time to strike. In a little while, we'll slaughter them until they're thrown off their helmets and stripped of their armor. The man in black cackled as he turned to the other voice behind him. Blood Eye, have you found the target? Kiki, relax. The target is still on the mountain. He can't escape. A voice rang out. Blood Eye was crouching and hiding on another tree. His aura was one with the tree, and if one didn't pay special attention to him, they wouldn't be able to discover him. It's about time. It's time for us to move. The two of them moved like ghosts, swiftly making their way toward the 3 bamboo hat men. Whoosh! A gentle breeze blew. Everything was hidden in the darkness, and everything was quiet. Around 5 minutes later, there was a sudden gust of wind from the east, blowing toward the Zhengqi League. In this sort of night, everything was perfectly normal, but few people noticed that there was something unusual in this gust of wind. To the east of the Zhengqi League's temporary base, a Zhengqi League disciple dressed in a Taiji crane robe was seated cross-legged on the ground, his palms facing the sky as he silently cultivated. As the wind blew past, this Zhengqi League disciple's nostrils flared, and after taking a few deep breaths, he couldn't help but open his eyes. a hint of confusion in them. But before he could figure out what was wrong, his body went limp, and he dropped to the ground. 1, 2, 3. As the wind blew past, Zhengqi League disciple after disciple suddenly dropped to the ground like wooden stakes. Who is it? With a furious roar, a Zhengqi League elder standing guard on the east side of the mountain suddenly stood up, his eyes staring warily into the darkness. This righteous alliance elder was far more sensitive to danger than an ordinary person, and he instantly sensed an intense danger. Haha! More than 1 li away, a man in black floated above a tree, while 2 others floated in the air, their hands held behind their backs as they coldly chuckled. Beside each of them was a black bag. Under the control of the stellar energy, wisps of fine white powder were flying out like a silver river, converging into the wind. There were at least 1,000 disciples gathered at the Zhengqi League's base. Ordinary people would have long ago retreated from such a large number, and not even the 5 Ancestor Alliance would dare to attack, while Song Yuanyi was present. But these men in black didn't even care about secular imperial authority. So why would they care about the factions of the martial arts world? No matter how many experts were gathered on this mountain, they would still dare to attack. Not good. Enemy attack. There's poison in the wind. Everyone hold your breaths. Another loud shout came from the dark night. The voice was incomparably anxious. In an instant, it was like a stone that gave rise to 1,000 ripples, and the originally silent mountain range instantly fell into chaos. Ah! Cries of alarm came from the summit, as more and more disciples awoke from their meditation. By the time they noticed the abnormality on the mountain, it was already too late. The immortal powder was colorless and odorless, making it very difficult to detect. In just a few moments, countless disciples had fallen to the ground like wooden stakes. They're really haunting us. Even though I hid here, they still found me. On the summit, Wang Chong looked down at his surroundings, his eyes cold. Even though the battle had not yet begun, Wang Chong had already sensed the auras of those men in black. Chapter 1382. If not for a freak combination of factors that had allowed him to sneak into the Zhengqi League, it would have been rather troublesome for him to encounter them alone. But now, one was his master's mortal enemy, and the other was bent on killing him. This was the perfect opportunity for them to fight and exhaust each other's strength. Since you've come, I can't just let you pay the price. With a faint smile, Wang Chong quickly disappeared from the mountain. Just who are you people? At the foot of the mountain, the tall and muscular Sikong Yuanjia stared at the eastern winds with a chilling gaze. But in response to Sikong Yuanjia was an ear-piercing shriek. Rumble! A massive boulder weighing several thousand kilograms rumbled through the night like a cannonball as it hurtled towards Sikong Yuanjia. You're seeking death. Sikong Yuanjia's expression chilled. Clang! With a metallic clang, a ring of metal shot out from beneath his feet. A moment later, Sikong Yuanjia left behind an afterimage as he vanished. Then he struck the boulder that was hurtling toward him. With a massive boom, the boulder, weighing several thousand jin, was instantly pulverized by Sikong Yuanjia's fist, the fragments flying in every direction. Ah! Just as Sikong Yuanjia was about to rush over, miserable screams came from all directions. Sikong Yuanjia paled when he heard these screams of death. But just as he was about to turn around and go help, he felt an intense sense of danger. You're seeking death. With no time to think, Sikong Yuanjia gathered all the stellar energy in his body, his right arm rapidly swelling until it looked like a qilin. Then he thrust his palm forward. Rumble! There was a violent explosion as the 2 palms collided. 2 flames, one violet and one black, seemed to have a life of their own. They instantly wrapped around Sikong Yuanjia's fist and began to spread to other parts of his body. Not good. Sikong Yuanjia's expression changed. He unleashed an even more powerful stellar energy that pushed back the black-clothed man. Then he rapidly retreated, putting a distance of 10-some paces between them. How could this be? Just what kind of technique is this? Sikong Yuanjia's face twisted as he stared at the 2 flames still burning on his arm. Putting aside Sikong Yuanjia, after the first wave of immortals had killed more than half of the Zhengqi League disciples, at least 60 black-clothed men rushed up the mountain like phantoms. These people had cold gazes and said nothing. Upon reaching the mountain, they all gathered together and charged forward at full speed. They had no intention of waging war against the Zhengqi League. For the black-clothed men, they only had one goal this time. Blood Eye. They had only one target. Around them, the sounds of weapons clashing could be heard. Amidst the chaos, a voice rang out. It was so low that it did not attract any attention. Spiriting Ing. Behind him, a man in black with bloodshot eyes nodded. He suddenly stopped and stepped on a rock with his right foot. He raised his head and looked at the sky. In that instant, a bright light flashed in his eyes. Screech. In the next moment, a sharp cry of an eagle pierced through the sky. If one looked closely, they would see an eagle with blood-red eyes suddenly swooping down from the dark clouds. His eyes were sharp, and with a flap of his wings, he shot towards a certain spot on the mountain, like an arrow released from a bow. There, a cold light flashed in Shuetong's eyes. In the next moment, a group of people immediately charged in the direction indicated by the spirit eagle. Enemy attack. Amidst the darkness, an expert from the Zhengqi League shouted. With vigilant eyes, he took the lead and charged at the men in black. Behind him, the experts of the Zhengqi League gathered from all directions. They quickly formed sword formations and charged at the men in black. Hee. These ants from the mortal world are really seeking death. A black-robed man's eyes were cruel and ruthless. With a sway of his body, he instantly displayed the void-escaping technique. Swish, swish, swish. In front of him, 5 or 6 Zhengqi League disciples suddenly had bloody marks on their necks. Before they could understand what was going on, they began to vomit blood and dropped to the ground with lifeless eyes. Awa! With furious howls, the bones of countless black-robed experts began to crack and crack. Their bodies began to swell, and then they began to transform into half Lu Wus. In a flash, they charged at the Zhengqi League disciples. Clang, clang, clang. One sword after another slashed at a half Lu Wus in black, but sparks flew as the swords and sabers were all repelled. Just what sort of monster is this? A Zhengqi League disciple trembled in fear and couldn't help but take a few steps back. He had seen many martial arts in the martial arts world, many of them strange and evil, but he had never seen a technique that allowed half a body to transform into a beast. The appearance of these men in black had completely shattered their understanding of the martial arts path. But in the next moment, before these black-robed disciples could take a few steps back, boom! A beast's claw more than twice the size of an ordinary person, its skin coarse, suddenly pressed against the chest of this Zhengqi League disciple. Aya! With a scream, the Zhengqi League disciple was thrown more than 20 meters into the air. While in the air, his body was a bloody corpse. Hurry and stop them! Furious and alarmed shouts rang out. These men in black weren't many in number, but they were inconceivably powerful, and they had all sorts of strange tricks up their sleeves. The Zhengqi League was the #1 faction of the martial arts world, and they knew of all the sects and alliances in the world, but they had never seen or heard of this faction of men in black before. Kaio. An endless stream of Zhengqi League experts charged forward, but none of them could stop the men in black. Whoosh! There was a flash of light. Black and violet flames shot out, burning the flames of Jubai and fire of Mara. The stellar energy within the bodies of the Zhengqi League experts began to burn, but the nature of their stellar energy was completely incapable of stopping this tyrannical flame. Immortal powder, fire of Jubai, fire of Mara, and a vast number of men in black. This was undoubtedly the most terrifying, bizarre, and inexplicable night the Zhengqi League had ever experienced. They had never heard of any of the techniques these men in black were using. Evil ghosts! How dare you act so impudently before the Zhengqi League? Just as the men in black were slaughtering their way through the mountain, a furious roar suddenly resounded. The heart of one of the black-clothed men, who was closest to the source of the sound, trembled. Without even thinking, he sent a fire of Mara, burning the sky and the waves, smashing it violently in the direction of the source of the sound. However, in the next moment, the black-clothed man raised his head to take a look, and his expression changed drastically. Not good. The black-clothed expert tried to retreat, but it was too late. In the blink of an eye, the sky darkened, and an incomparably huge black shadow suddenly descended. Rumble! Stellar energy exploded, and dust billowed into the air, rising dozens of feet into the air. Under the gazes of countless people, a giant black qilin descended from the sky. With a single swipe of its claw, the black-robed man, who could use the fire of Mara, was smashed to pieces. Before the man in black died, he had sent out a wave of fire of Mara, which wrapped around the black qilin's body and began to sizzle. But with a bang, stellar energy burst forth and, at the cost of a portion of it, forcibly extinguished the fire of Mara that could incinerate all things. Ouyang Changheng was thoroughly infuriated that the number one faction of the martial arts world had suffered grievous losses from a group of unknown men in black who had poisoned and ambushed them. Although these men in black were powerful, and their black flames extremely bizarre, Ouyang Changheng was a peak Saint Martial realm expert. The threat of these inextinguishable flames was far less than that of the others. Without the slightest hesitation, Ouyang Changheng transformed into a massive black qilin and began to attack the other experts in black. Bang! 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 Shockwaves shot out in all directions. The previously incomparably powerful black-clothed men were all sent flying back by Ouyang Changheng's black qilin form. Plush! A half Lu Wu man in black charged at the black qilin, but the black qilin stomped on him, causing his organs to explode and his body to be reduced to pulp. Leave this person to me. The rest of you continue. With a roar, a man in black who seemed to be the leader let out a beast-like roar. In an instant, his entire body was wrapped in a ball of deep darkness, and he disappeared. Roar! In a flash of light, a massive black flame Azura emerged from the ground. However, it was different from the other black flame Azuras. The black flame Azura that the leader of the black-robed men had transformed into was 15 to 16 meters tall. Furthermore, it didn't have 6 arms but 8. The stellar energy on his body was condensed to the extreme, like steel and iron, accompanied by a series of rumbling sounds. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the 8-armed Azura shot forward like a bolt of lightning, colliding with Ouyang Changheng's black qilin. Boom! Boom! In the instant that the two of them collided, time seemed to stop. However, in the next instant, a shockingly terrifying power erupted from the two of them, radiating in all directions. Let's go! While the two of them were locked in an intense battle, Crimson Eye leaped out from the other side. He flew through the air at an astonishing speed, heading in the direction indicated by the spirit eagle. Kill! The entire mountain was filled with shouts of battle, as countless Jingqi League experts charged at the mysterious men in black. At some point, a fire had been lit on the mountain. A Jingqi League expert had lit a bonfire, which brightened up the darkness. Then a second, a third, a fourth. These bonfires were scattered all over the mountain, creating a field of fire. Through these flames, the Jingqi League experts were finally able to track down the movements of the men in black. Chapter 1383. Boom! As the spirit eagle swooped down, Xuetong had also arrived. With a raise of his hand, a wave of black flames covered the sky and the earth. It was as dense as a black crystal, and it slammed toward the green figure in the night sky. This figure was exactly the same as the one the spirit eagle had seen during the day. But a moment later, stellar energy exploded, and the blue figure was instantly torn to shreds. Countless pieces of cloth drifted through the air, and were burned to dust by the black flames. It was fake. Xuetong felt like he had been pricked by a needle, his pupils constricting and his face paling. Although the black flames were powerful, and could burn almost anything, they were not so powerful that they could burn a living person to ashes in the blink of an eye. In a flash, Xuetong realized that he had been tricked. Damn it! Xuetong recalled a rumor, and his heart exploded with rage. It was said that the old scoundrel from Sindha had given the target that item, so that the target could discover him in advance. There was no doubt that he had been discovered in advance. Everyone had been fooled by him. "My lord, we've discovered the target. He's to the southwest of this mountain." One of the black-clothed subordinates suddenly said, "Let's go. No matter what, we have to kill him today and obtain that item." Xuetong viciously said, The three lords were standing guard at the base of the mountain, so this brat would find it impossible to escape. As long as he was on this mountain, he would never be able to escape. Swoosh! Just as Xue Tong was about to lead everyone in another direction, a sudden change occurred in the blink of an eye. Evil demon, where do you think you're going? An elderly voice bellowed, brimming with killing intent. Before anyone could react, a majestic energy as vast as the sea came crashing down. Xue Tong grimaced, and with no time to think, he turned around and thrust out a palm. Two powerful energies collided in the air like steel. Xue Tong remained motionless, blocking this terrifying attack like a rock. But before Xue Tong could react, a wave of shrill cries resounded by his ears in the next moment, and then over 10 black-clothed figures were blasted flying like leaves being swept away by the autumn wind. How dare you demons behave atrociously in the territory of the Jingqi League? I won't forgive you today. In the darkness of the night, a gray-haired old man with thick arms stood there. He looked incomparably ferocious, and his whole body erupted with an astonishing aura. Zhonglizi. He was the guest elder of the Jingqi League, as well as the leader of the Yuanyang sect. Zhonglizi had been good friends with the Jingqi League's master for decades, and he was also one of the strongest elders of the Jingqi League, on par with Xikong Yuanjia. Humph! You guys go. Blood-Eye gestured to the back, then stayed behind and stared at Zhonglizi. There was the sound of a sharp blade piercing through flesh. A sharp bone spike over 2 feet long protruded out of Xue Tong's spine. 2-3. In the blink of an eye, a series of sharp bone spikes had emerged from Xue Tong's back, and all the joints in his body. At this moment, Xue Tong's aura underwent a heaven-shaking transformation. The aura he exuded was one of extreme danger, one that was filled with brutality, cruelty, and chaos. Buzz! Zhonglizi's pupils constricted, his entire body grimacing. Having roamed the martial arts world for several decades, Zhonglizi considered himself to be very knowledgeable, and he knew the vast majority of martial arts like the back of his hand. But this sort of technique that could change one's physical form and multiply one's aura was something he had never even seen or heard of before. This had completely surpassed the scope of ordinary martial arts. Demons! You're all demons! Zhonglizi's eyes were filled with extreme shock, but there was also a thick killing intent. No matter who they were, just based on what they had done tonight, they would not be able to return alive. Kakik! How could a mortal understand the methods of an immortal? Aunt, let me end your life. Crimson Eye's long hair fell down and danced violently in the wind. He cackled strangely as he stared fixedly at Zhonglizi. A powerful killing intent that was so thick that it could not be dispersed erupted from his body. Xue Tong's stellar energy exploded as he charged at Zhonglizi with astonishing speed. Boom boom! In the blink of an eye, the two began to fight like lightning. Meanwhile, the others charged toward the southwest. But they had barely begun when the black-clothed man, who had warned Xue Tong, immediately stopped, his expression changing. The black-clothed men possessed a special technique. As long as they obtained a bit of the target's clothing or daily use, they would immediately be able to detect the target's aura. As long as the target was within a certain range, they would be able to detect the target. But just now, although the target in the southwest had not disappeared, the target's aura had appeared in the southeast and northeast of the mountain range. Although they didn't know what he had done, there was no doubt that the target had used this method to play them all. All of you go to the southeast and northeast. The black-clothed man suddenly turned his head and said a few words, then led a group of black-clothed men toward the southwest. The remaining black-clothed men quickly split into 2 groups, each heading toward the southeast and northeast. More and more Jingqi League experts appeared on the mountain range. All the elders and protectors flew out and engaged in a fierce battle with the black-clothed men, both sides suffering casualties. Although they had been caught off guard at first, and had been poisoned by the Immortal's powder, there were still nearly 1,000 Jingqi League experts gathered on this mountain range. Even if the black-clothed men used the night wind to release the poison, they could only poison one side. Not all of the Jingqi League experts. In front of these black-clothed men, the Jingqi League experts weren't completely helpless. Hurry! What are you bastards doing? At this moment, Jiandu was standing on a rock in the southeast, constantly issuing orders to the Zhengqi League experts at his side to attack the black-clothed men. This time, everyone was gathered here, and Jiandu didn't dare flee. Jiandu had also suddenly received the news, and before he could even understand what was going on, the entire Zhengqi League was under attack. Damn it, what's going on here? Is there a faction in the world that the Zhengqi League doesn't know about? Jiandu was both shocked and confused, but Jiandu didn't care how many people from the Zhengqi League died. In any case, it wasn't his subordinates who were dying. As long as he could withdraw at any time, nothing else mattered. The mountain is in chaos. I just don't know if that brat is dead or not. In a flash, Jiandu thought of that young master Qingyang. Although he didn't have sufficient evidence, Jiandu didn't believe that this was the real young master Qingyang. From their first meeting, that brat had given him a strange feeling. Of course, more importantly, Jiandu disliked having people around Song Yuran, and he disliked having people talk back to him even more. Jiandu did not deny the malice he felt toward young master Qingyang. Buzz! As Jiandu was thinking, he suddenly saw a cold light out of the corner of his eye. Although he couldn't clearly see what it was, Jiandu immediately sensed danger. Boom! A figure dressed in black exploded out of the darkness, a sword in his hand slashing at Jiandu. Not good. Jiandu's heart chilled and he paled. With no time to think, Jiandu pushed off the ground and rapidly retreated. At the same time, stellar energy burst forth. Boom! He fiercely punched at the black-clothed man who had suddenly appeared. Boom! The two energies clashed, but a moment later, Jiandu was left dumbfounded by what happened next. That fierce and forceful strike, when the two fists and swords clashed, was actually as light as a feather. When Jiandu punched out, the assassin was instantly blown into nothingness. Even though Jiandu had a suspicious personality, and had even lost to the illustrious demonic emperor Zhang Wenfu of the martial arts world, he was still struck dumb by this inexplicable sight, his mind flabbergasted. Even with his shrewdness, he couldn't figure out what was going on, and what was going on. But Jiandu's confusion did not last for long. A moment later, he understood what was going on. Over there! Kill him! A deep voice rang out in his ear. Some men in black suddenly appeared nearby, bellowing like wild beasts. Bang! Before Jiandu could react, a pitch-black flame imbued with a hair-raising energy rumbled toward him. Jiandu's body swayed as he dodged to the side, barely dodging the black flames. As it brushed past him, Jiandu sensed the terrifying energy within. His hair stood on end, his eyes filled with deep fear. This was definitely the most dangerous flame Jiandu had ever encountered. Kill him! The deep and raspy voice once more came from nearby. In a flash, some terrifying energies locked onto Jiandu. Jiandu's face paled, and he almost stopped breathing. He had encountered many dangerous situations in his life, but none of them had made him feel so terrified. Go! Without a second thought, Jiandu pushed off the ground with his right foot, and immediately shot backward, fleeing like a bolt of lightning. These men in black were far too powerful. Jiandu sensed that if he did not run, he would die here. But Jiandu had underestimated their reactions. Rumble! Countless bolts of energy crashed into the place where Jiandu had been standing, filling the air with dust. Chapter 1384. Wah! Jiandu vomited a mouthful of blood. His chest caved in, all the blood exploding from his chest toward his limbs and head. It felt like all his blood and organs had been jolted out. Jiandu didn't even know how many of his ribs had been broken. Worse still, a black flame had penetrated his body and burrowed into his limbs and bones. Drip drip. Black blood oozed out of his nose. At this moment, Jiandu felt an intense fear. For the first time, he felt that he was so close to death. It's that bastard. It must be him. Jiandu clenched his teeth, his mind seething with hatred. He knew that he had been ambushed this time, and the only person who could ambush him with this sort of goal and need could only be him. Everyone hear my order. Kill them. Jiandu's shrill and resounding voice pierced through the sky. Bang! A moment later, there was an explosion of blood. For the first time since joining the Zhengqi League, Jiandu used the blood escape art he had learned from the evil path. His speed soared as he transformed into a black streak of light, leaving behind a trail of blood as he fled into the distance. At this moment, his speed was several times faster than before. Not even the half. Luwu Man in Black had time to react. Kill! Kill them! Cries of battle rang out from all around. On the summit, the experts of the Jingqi League surged forward, forming into sword formations that charged fearlessly at the men in black. Even though these men in black were powerful, the Jingqi League, as the #1 faction of the martial arts world, had its own dignity. No matter what sort of opponent it encountered, it could not retreat. Clang clang clang. Sabers clattered and swords clattered, waves of energy ringing in the air. In a flash, the experts of the Jingqi League had arrived. The men in black instantly lost their best chance to pursue Jiandu. Wait! It doesn't seem like him. The black-robed leader's eyes flashed, as he seemed to have sensed something. For a moment, he did sense that aura from the guy who was running away, and he almost treated him as the real target. However, when the guy used a secret technique to stimulate his potential and ran for his life, the aura that originally belonged to the target immediately disappeared without a trace. There was no doubt that this was not the real goal either. Don't worry about the guy who escaped. Find a way to find the target. As for these guys, kill them all. A gleam flashed in the eyes of the black-clothed leader. Pung! He raised his right hand, and a thick black flame as viscous as liquid whizzed out, instantly striking an expert of the Jingqi League. Black flames immediately enveloped his entire body. Ah! With a shrill howl, the Jingqi League disciple's stellar energy burned fiercely, and in just a few moments, he was reduced to a charred corpse and fell to the ground. At the same time, a series of explosions came from several other places. The other men in black had also found Wang Chang's aura and location, but after a series of explosions, they had all vanished. It was exactly the same situation as they had encountered in the southwest corner, but in just a few moments, they seemed to have evaporated into thin air, while the battle between the men in black and the Jingqi League only intensified. It's about time. At this moment, far from the battlefield, among the group of Jingqi League disciples who had been poisoned to the ground, a figure suddenly stood up. As his gaze swept over the countless figures fighting in the flames, Wang Chang's eyes flickered, and his lips curled into a smile. The men in black had come with a fierce momentum. Song Yuanyi had been pursuing his master this entire time, and the formation elder's slip of the tongue had apparently made him suspicious of Wang Chong. 5 powerful Jingqi League elders were standing guard at 5 different locations, cutting off any escape routes that Wang Chong could take. Moreover, Wang Chong could sense that there were 3 even more formidable fellows standing guard at the base of the mountain. In this sort of situation, Wang Chong didn't know whether to advance, retreat, or attack. He could only think of a strategy. The men in black could lock onto him through energy, and Wang Chong's cloning art of stellar energy perfectly resolved this problem. Although these clones could only exist for a short time, and had little fighting power, they were more than enough to confuse the men in black in this battle. But just these people from the Jingqi League aren't enough. Wang Chong scanned the battlefield and slightly creased his brow. These men in black were of mysterious origins, and inconceivably powerful. Although the Jingqi League had an expert like Ouyang Changheng to stop them, they were still unable to do so in such a short time. Wang Chong subconsciously turned his gaze to the summit. There stood a white tent. It was where the lord of the Jingqi League, Song Yuanyi, was. If there was one person who could change the course of this battle, it was probably the lord of the Jingqi League. But for some reason, the tent was quiet, and there was no movement at all. With a smile, Wang Chong immediately turned around and began to make his way up the mountain. The night was quiet, and even though the shouts of battle on the mountain could shake the heavens, the area beyond the mountain was quiet. If one looked carefully, one would see that around 200-some paces from the base of the mountain was a lush forest. As the wind blew, all the leaves swayed in the wind. Above these leaves, 3 bamboo hat men stood in a line, floating motionlessly in the air, as if they were walking on flat ground. The battle had been going on for some time, but the 3 bamboo hat men were standing there with no intention of interfering. It was like none of this had anything to do with them. It seems like there's a little trouble on the mountain. The leftmost bamboo hat man suddenly spoke as he looked up at the mountain. Haha, that little rat has begun to use his tricks again. The rightmost bamboo hat man sinisterly smiled and spoke, his voice suffused with a sinister and bloodthirsty tone. Leader, do you need us to move? A moment later, the two turned to the largest bamboo hat man in the center. Although he was also wearing a bamboo hat, the bamboo hat man in the center exuded a thick and heavy aura, making it clear that he was the true leader. The bamboo hat man stood in the air, silent and motionless, making it impossible to guess what he was thinking. There's no need. After a long while, the bamboo hat man in the center finally spoke. That person still hasn't moved. As he spoke, he slowly raised his eyes and swept across the void, looking at the white tent at the top of the mountain. Although the battlefield was in chaos, and people were constantly falling, that white tent seemed to be standing in another world, completely unaffected. Although it was unremarkable on the outside, and few people were paying attention to it, the bamboo hat man could sense that it was hiding an extremely powerful storm. The battle on the mountain was getting more and more intense. As the #1 faction of the martial arts world, the Jingqi League had as many experts as the clouds in the sky, and the resistance of these experts had inflicted many casualties on the men in black. Damn it! Why is that brat still nowhere to be seen? Could he have flown away? On the mountain, Blood-Eye clenched his teeth in fury. Cree! At this moment, a sharp cry suddenly rang out from the top of the mountain. Crimson Eye's heart skipped a beat as he raised his head. He saw that the spirit eagle that had swooped down had taken to the sky once more, searching for traces of its target on the mountain. However, this time, it wasn't pointing in any other direction, but right at the top of the mountain. Let's go! A cold light flashed in Shuetong's eyes. As he flew toward the top of the mountain, he let out an incomparably loud whistle. In an instant, the black-clothed men in all directions seemed to have received some sort of order. They all leaped forward, shaking off their opponents, and headed toward the white tent at the top of the mountain. Countless Jingqi League disciples were charging in from all directions, but they were unable to stop them. 20 zhang, 100 zhang, 80 zhang. They were getting closer and closer to the summit. Blood-Eye stopped when he was about 60 to 70 feet from the top of the mountain. A strong sense of danger suddenly exploded in his heart. That unremarkable white tent suddenly became extremely dangerous in Blood-Eye's perception. Thwish thwish thwish. Although Crimson Eye sensed danger and stopped, the other men in black on both sides did not feel anything at all. They continued to rush toward the tent at the top of the mountain, at an extremely fast speed. One of the half, Lu Wus at the very front, was less than 2 zhang from the summit. Boom! With a shake of his wrist, he had no intention of entering the tent to see what was going on. Instead, he unleashed a destructive energy at the white tent. In the blink of an eye, just as the white tent was about to be hit, a furious voice suddenly came from inside. Impudent! That voice contained a great majesty, as if it was the voice of a high and mighty god, causing people to involuntarily feel a sense of extreme fear. Buzz! At that moment, time seemed to have stopped. Under the gazes of countless black-clothed men, a terrifying wave of chi suddenly burst out from the white tent, shattering the heavens and splitting the earth at an extremely terrifying speed. It was as if it could topple mountains and overturn seas. That frightening power swept out like a hurricane. With a single strike, it scattered the attack of the black-clothed man, who was charging at the forefront, and hit his body. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the half, Lu Wus in black, was heavily injured. His chest caved in, his bones snapped, and he vomited blood as he was sent flying. The white wave of energy did not rest, and it continued to sweep toward the other men in black in the rear. Thud thud thud. Chapter 1385. Not good. Shuetong's expression changed drastically, and he immediately fled. However, even with Shuetong's cultivation, he was still unable to keep up with the speed of the white wave of qi. Bang! There was a flash of light, and the wave of qi caught up in the blink of an eye. Shuetong only had time to use all the strength in his body to unleash a fire of Mara. before he was struck by the rolling white wave of Qi. Rumble. The black fire of Mara, that could incinerate all things, only burned on the surface of the wave of Qi, for a moment, before it was forcefully extinguished by the tyrannical power. In midair, Xuetong spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire face was pale, and he was also sent flying like a kite with its string cut. It was just a single strike, but Xuetong, who was one of the strongest cultivators among the black-robed men, had his bones broken and tendons torn, and he was heavily injured. Whoosh! Thick smoke billowed and sand and dust rose. Mottled bloodstains covered a radius of several dozen feet around the white tent, and countless rocks were scattered everywhere. There were even more corpses of the black-clothed men lying on the ground. Even more black-clothed men were heavily injured. They clutched their chests with one hand and looked at the top of the mountain in horror. They looked at the inconspicuous white tent in the darkness of the night. At that moment, the world was silent, and not a sound could be heard. Even the perpetrator of all this, Wang Chong, who had been hiding behind the mountain, stood in the darkness with a hint of shock in his eyes. There was a soft tearing sound as the white tent was pulled open, and a white figure with his hands behind his back slowly walked out. His eyes were filled with disdain, and his footsteps were calm. A vast, ocean-like aura burst forth from his body, and even the surrounding space began to distort under this power. In that instant, Song Yuanyi's expression was cold. His imposing, heavy, and powerful body was like a mountain that pierced through the sky, and he became the undisputed center of the world. How is this possible? He's so powerful. Wang Chong muttered to himself. Looking at the back of the figure at the top of the mountain, for the first time, he felt a deep sense of fear. In Luyao City, Wang Chong had fought with these Lu Wus and Black Flame Azuras, so he knew just how powerful they were. Wang Chong had originally believed that although Song Yuanyi was strong, he was only at the peak of the Saint Martial realm, a peak great general. But at this moment, Wang Chong felt that his judgment was wrong. This person's battle prowess was probably not much weaker than his master's. Over the past 2 years, his master had been recuperating and had regained his original cultivation. He had even comprehended the existence of the subtle realm. However, these opponents of his master, the evil emperor, had probably not been slacking off in the past 2 years. Given his master's suspicious personality back then, those who could plot against him were definitely not easy to deal with. And compared to his master, these people had at least 1.5 years more to comprehend the martial path. While his master was comprehending the subtle realm, his master's old foes had probably made significant advancements in their martial arts. This person was extremely dangerous. When he thought about how Song Yuanyi had always been suspicious of his identity, and had even arranged for 5 elders at the base of the mountain, Wang Chong instantly felt an intense sense of danger. Song Yuanyi was an extremely shrewd person. Even with Song Yuan's help, Wang Chong was afraid that he would be able to deceive him. I can't stay here any longer, Wang Chong quietly said to himself. But despite the chaos on the mountain, Wang Chong did not immediately leave. He could sense that those 3 terrifying energies had been hiding at the base of the mountain and had not moved at all. If he were to attack now, he would probably attract the attention of both Song Yuanyi and the others. I can only wait a little longer. Wang Chong forced himself to remain motionless. Just who are you people? Song Yuanyi's footsteps were calm as he advanced toward the man in black. As one of the strongest figures in the martial arts world, Song Yuanyi exuded a dignified aura that made others tremble in fear and alarm. But none of the men in black replied to Song Yuanyi's arrogant question. Thump! His right foot stomped heavily on the ground as a black-clothed man charged forward, his eyes glowing with killing intent. Gripping a sword, he charged at Song Yuanyi. With one, there was a second. The other black-clothed men leaped forward, wordlessly charging at Song Yuanyi. In this world, there were no factions that they cared about. No matter how powerful Song Yuanyi was, he was just a commoner in their eyes. It was just that this commoner was a little stronger. Seeking death. Song Yuanyi's eyes chilled. No one could see how he had attacked the men in black charging at him. All they saw was that he had one hand behind his back, while the other had flicked out. In a flash, 6 or 7 rays of energy more dazzling than the sun flew through the air, and struck the men in black. Bang bang. Whether it was the powerful half, Lu Wus, or the powerful black flame Azura, they were all struck by one explosion after another. None of them were able to withstand the seemingly casual flick of Song Yuanyi's finger energy. Swish swish swish. In flashes of light, bloody holes appeared on the chests, hearts, and other vital points of the men in black. Through these bloody holes, one could see their backs. Even the internal organs in the chest cavity could be seen clearly. How could this be? The men in black came to a sudden stop, their eyes wide and mouths agape as they stared at the bloody holes in their chests. With their strength, even divine weapons and sharp blades would find it difficult to cause effective harm to them. But this human had been able to end their lives with a single flick of energy. They simply could not accept this. Bang bang bang. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, their vision went dark, and they dropped to the ground motionless. Silence, incomparable silence. The men in black who had been charging up the mountain immediately stopped. Their faces were pale, and filled with fear. Alliance Lord! Alliance Lord! Alliance Lord! After a brief moment of silence, all the Jingqi League disciples began to cheer in excitement. These men in black had appeared out of nowhere, all of them dressed in black and wearing black scarves. They seemed extremely mysterious, but also inconceivably powerful. Moreover, they had great teamwork, not saying a single word as they ascended the mountain. In stark contrast to the 5 Ancestor Alliance disciples, they were like ghosts from the underworld. In a single clash, countless Jingqi League disciples had died to their hands, and not even the elders had been a match for them. This made everyone feel a deep fear and unease. But in the end, these people had still fallen to their Alliance Lord. No matter how powerful these men in black were, they were nothing but clay chickens before their Alliance Lord. Whoosh! In a gust of wind, the 3 bamboo hat men at the edge of the forest at the base of the mountain finally began to move. They can't hold on any longer. The bamboo hat man on the left suddenly said, I didn't think that besides the imperial court of the Central Plains, the world of sex would also have such a character. A very powerful opponent. It seems like we also need to move out. At this moment, the bamboo hat man on the right spoke up. Just the fact that he had killed so many of his subordinates twice made this formidable figure of the martial arts world worth fighting. The bamboo hat man in the middle finally gave a slight nod. All of you go. Kail. Kill. The sounds of fighting could be heard in the distance. Encouraged by Song Yuanyi's words, the surrounding Righteous Alliance disciples were invigorated and began to raise their weapons to attack the men in black. Hee. On the treetop, the bamboo hat man on the left suddenly smiled, a cruel smile on his lips. His right hand gripped the hilt of his scabbard, and with a light pull, a pitch-black scimitar half unsheathed itself. Clang! With a clear hum of a saber, the bamboo hat man vanished like a wisp of smoke. At the base of the mountain, the battle was still raging. The Jingqi League disciples had managed to trap a significant portion of the men in black in various parts of the mountain. Kail. At the base of the mountain, a Jingqi League disciple emerged from the outermost perimeter of the battlefield and charged at one of the men in black. But a moment later he sensed an intense danger. The Jingqi League disciple grimaced and turned his head, only to find that there was only darkness behind him. A faint saber mark as thin as a strand of hair appeared in the air, rapidly expanding in his eyes. Swish! There was a flash of saber light, and before the Jingqi League disciple could even react, he was cleaved in two. His entire body staggered, and then transformed into 2 blazing balls of black flame. Not only that, the flames poured down in torrents, and even the bare ground within a 10-step radius was set ablaze. Bang! In the blink of an eye, the corpse of the Jingqi League disciple exploded. After the first, there was a second. At almost the same time, several steps away from the first Jingqi League disciple, without any warning, a second Jingqi League disciple was also cleaved in 2 by a faint arc of light, exploding into flames. 1, 2, 3, 4. In the blink of an eye, 10 some Jingqi League disciples at the base of the mountain were instantly set ablaze, howling in pain. The black flames flowed down the mountain like the sea. Swish! Another saber light flashed in the air. But this time, it wasn't targeted at a single Jingqi League disciple. The faint saber light was as thin as a strand of hair, and it was at least 20 to 30 zhang long. In that instant, boom, the entire mountain seemed to be cleaved in half. Whether the 20 to 30 Jingqi League disciples sensed it or not, they were all sliced apart like lambs waiting to be slaughtered in the face of this saber energy. Their separated bodies burned fiercely in the thick black flames. Roar! One after another, the bodies of the Zhengqi League experts were sliced apart. Their heads were still howling miserably in the black flames, their faces contorted in agony. Ah! Upon seeing this scene, the excited Zhengqi League disciples at the base of the mountain, who were attacking the black-clothed man, all revealed expressions of extreme fear. In the face of that terrifying saber light, everyone was as insignificant as an ant. No matter how they resisted, only death awaited them. Chapter 1386. Swish. Another saber glow cut down 20-some Jingqi League experts like they were harvesting wheat. None of the members of the Righteous Alliance were able to stop that hair-thin saber energy that could come and go like a ghost. The saber energy cut through the air, forming a Z shape as it shot up from the base of the mountain. Crooked demon, die for me! At this moment, a thunderous roar came from the void above. Just as the hair-like blade light that was hard to see with the naked eye appeared once again, there was a flash of light in the void. A ball of intense flames burned fiercely like a comet and smashed towards the 200-meter-long blade mark. Through the flames, one could faintly make out a tall figure. His body was as sturdy as a bronze giant, and his body was covered in a suit of fiery red armor, made of stellar energy. This armor was gorgeous and extremely tough. It was 7 or 8 inches thick, and seemed to be made out of crystal, exuding an aura of indestructibility. Constellation Flame C. Sikong Yuanjia roared, the power of his body surging like a tsunami as it collided with the faint blade scar. Bum bum bum. Waves of energy swept through the area, and finally, the saber slash shattered. 7 or 8 feet from the ground, the bamboo hat man's figure appeared for the first time. His eyes were cold, his muscles taut, and he wielded a black scimitar. His cape flapped in the wind, giving off the impression that he was a leopard on the verge of lunging. His face also suddenly paled quite a bit. It was clear that Sikong Yuanjia had suffered quite a bit in that exchange. He had not yet recovered from his battle with the evil emperor, and now that he had run into this powerful bamboo hat man, he had suffered significant injuries. The bamboo hat man's eyes locked onto Sikong Yuanjia. The black scimitar in his hand gave a bloodthirsty hum, as it once more vanished into the air. Great Void Step. This was the upgraded version of the Void Escape. Its speed and power were much stronger than the Void Escape. When it was used, there was no aura at all, and it was extremely fast. It was also getting harder and harder to determine his true location. Even a powerful elder of the Zhengqi League, like Sikong Yuanjia, would find it very difficult to locate the bamboo hat man. Chi. Another slash appeared. This one even faster and more ruthless than before. By the time it appeared, it was already extremely close to Sikong Yuanjia, its target being his back. Boom! Sikong Yuanjia paled. In his haste, he only had time to gather 80% of his stellar energy and blast it backward. However, the saber chi was far sharper than Sikong Yuanjia had imagined. With a single slash, it cut through Sikong Yuanjia's stellar energy and slashed at his back. Die! A cruel smile appeared on the bamboo hat man's face. He cultivated one of the top-class saber arts of the men in black, called the Myriad Reincarnation Slash. This saber art required one to unleash 10 slashes, 100 slashes, 1,000 slashes, or even more in 1 second. However, at the highest level, all the saber chi would condense into one, forming a faint saber mark that was over 200 feet long and as thin as a hair. It was simple and plain, but its power was inconceivably powerful. Even a peak great general would be able to cut through their stellar energy, like a piece of paper. Boom! The peerless stellar energy slashed at Sikong Yuanjia's body, but a moment later, the saber chi dispersed. It was as if the saber chi had struck a fortress, completely blocked by Sikong Yuanjia's 8-inch thick armor. Sikong Yuanjia tumbled in the air, thrown back 20-some meters by the power of the saber chi. His face instantly paled, but he had still managed to block it. The Zhurong Divine Armor. This was a supreme technique unique to Sikong Yuanjia. It had taken him 20 years to successfully cultivate it, but he had finally reached a level of extreme perfection. Sikong Yuanjia had relied on this technique to become one of the strongest elders of the Jingqi League. No matter how powerful a technique was, it would find it very difficult to deal much damage to Sikong Yuanjia's Zhurong Divine Armor. But a moment later, with a crisp crack, the Zhurong Divine Armor on Sikong Yuanjia's body suddenly began to crack. The sight of these cracks caused Sikong Yuanjia to lose his composure. How could this be? Sikong Yuanjia's heart chilled, and he immediately felt a deep apprehension. His armor was tougher than real steel. To be able to crack it with a single slash meant that his opponent's saber chi was far more formidable than he had imagined. The bamboo hat man clearly noticed this, and his eyes chilled as he pulled out his saber and attacked once more. Elder Sikong, we've come to help you. At this moment, there was a flash of light as the other elders at the base of the mountain hurried over. In a gust of wind, the bamboo hat man on the right sneered. He took a step forward, crossing Tensum Zhang with each step. After 2 more steps, he blinked away. The second bamboo hat man did not alarm anyone. His body was as faint as smoke as he brushed past Sikong Yuanjia's group and made his way to the summit. With the greater void step, he was naturally invincible. The first bamboo hat man had no need for his help. On the other hand, Song Yuani's existence on the summit posed an enormous threat to all the men in black. He had displayed strength that Blood-Eye and the others were no match for him. He's finally moved. Under the massive banner of the Jingqi League, and in front of the white tent, Song Yuani's robes fluttered in the wind. His deep eyes pierced through the void and grasped all the movements around him. Whether it was the bamboo hat man fighting with Sikong Yuanjia at the base of the mountain, the second bamboo hat man advancing with lightning-like speed, or the leader on the distant treetop, none of them could escape Song Yuani's discerning eyes. He had sensed their presence from the start of the battle. To shoot a man, first shoot his horse, and to capture his followers, first capture their leader. Song Yuani was well aware that the 3 bamboo hat men who had been inactive this entire time were the greatest threat to the Jingqi League. Only by defeating them could he truly resolve this crisis. This was also why he had not used up his stellar energy this entire time. Kill! Battle cries rang out from the mountain, accompanied by the clashing of swords and sabers. Before Song Yuani's edge, all the men in black crumbled. After witnessing Song Yuani's terrifying slaughter, even Blood-Eye felt fear, let alone the others. All the men in black kept their distance, almost subconsciously avoiding Song Yuani. This alliance lord of the Jingqi League had become inconceivably powerful in their eyes. Retreat! This fellow is too strong. Leave it to leader to deal with him. Blood-Eye roared from within the crowd. 80% of their men had died at the hands of Song Yuani. This sort of person was a god of slaughter. He could only hope that the 3 leaders would take action. Whoosh, a gentle breeze blew. Song Yuani's robes fluttered, and he stepped away from the mountain peak, heading toward the battlefield. As the center of the entire battlefield, his strength was completely at the level of a ruler. Song Yuani's actions attracted the attention of countless people. Seeing Song Yuani move, everyone broke out in a cold sweat. Many men in black turned pale, and they immediately retreated involuntarily. Swish! Song Yuani's expression was indifferent. He flicked his finger, and a man in black who was closest to the front was immediately struck by a wisp of chi from his finger, and he fell stiffly to the ground. Song Yuani's expression did not change in the slightest, and he continued to walk forward in the air. Wang! After taking 5 or 6 steps, Song Yuani opened his palm, and in an instant, there was a cry of surprise. A man in black suddenly seemed to be hooked up by an invisible chain, and he instantly disappeared into Song Yuani's palm. Like a duck, he was held in his hand and suspended in the air. Speak! Just who are you people? Why do you have to act against our Jingqi League? Song Yuani looked down from above, his voice calm and indifferent, but it was also filled with boundless fear. The man sneered, and before Song Yuani could act, he immediately clenched his teeth. Black blood flowed out of his mouth, and his hand drooped to the side. He was no longer breathing. This sight caused Song Yuani to finally frown for the first time. They're actually death-sworn. In the world of sex, killing for revenge was a very common occurrence, but very few people would act like these men in black, hiding poison in their teeth and committing suicide as soon as they were captured. No sect, including evil path disciples, would do such a thing. Only death-sworn would do such a thing. Elder Lu, Elder Kong. At this moment, Song Yuani's gaze swept over the two Jingqi League elders in the middle of a fierce battle. Their auras were in disarray, and it was clear that they had been injured in the battle. Alliance Lord. Upon hearing Song Yuani's voice, the two decisively retreated and flew to Song Yuani's side. Both of their faces were pale, and they didn't look too good. Among the Jingqi League elders, their cultivation was slightly weaker, so their resistance to the fire of Mara and fire of Jubai was weaker. Almost 2 out of 3 of these black-clothed men could use this kind of flame, which consumed a lot of their stellar chi. I'll leave these people to you, Song Yuani said. Without even raising his head, he flicked his finger twice, and a moment later, 2 streams of energy shot through the air and entered the 2 men's bodies. In the blink of an eye, the 2 men's auras rapidly swelled, and their injuries healed at a visible rate. One of the elders, surnamed Lu, had a gash that stretched from the left side of his chest to the right side of his abdomen, but it quickly healed at a visible rate. Swish! Without even raising his head, Song Yuani flicked out a few more streams of energy from his finger. In the midst of the fierce battle, several heavily injured Jingqi League experts, who were struggling to hold on, suddenly saw their auras heal at a visible rate. In the blink of an eye, their faces were rosy, and they charged forward like tigers and dragons. Buzz! At the top of the mountain, Wang Chong stood behind a giant boulder. When he saw this, his eyelids twitched. In the world of martial arts, healing the wounds of others was something that all martial artists could do, but no one could do what Song Yuani did. Not only could he easily heal the wounds of others from afar, but he could also heal them at a speed visible to the naked eye. Perhaps even 80 to 90% of martial artists could not do this. This was no longer within the realm of normal martial arts. Eternal Spring Mantra. Chapter 1387. Boom! In a flash of light, a whip more than 20 meters long appeared in the air and lashed out at Song Yuani. The black fire of Mara seemed to have a life of its own, wriggling and shrieking in a dreadful manner. The long whip swept through the air, and it was as sharp as a sword. Chi! There was a sound like silk tearing. Wherever the black whip passed, the air was instantly torn apart like paper, and the cut that was revealed was extremely smooth. With the sharpness of this whip, it was likely that even a piece of steel would be split in half. Clap! However, in the next moment, a light flashed, and a fair, slender, and powerful palm stretched out its 5 fingers, instantly grabbing the incomparably sharp whip. The black flames quickly spread up, but as soon as they touched the fist, they immediately stopped burning, as if they had encountered an invisible barrier. Clang! At this moment, the clanging of swords resounded through the air. The moment Song Yuani attacked, a faint figure appeared from another direction. It had been 10 some feet away at first, but in the blink of an eye, it had appeared in front of Song Yuani. One arm was covered in a black, spiked gauntlet, as it hurtled toward Song Yuani with astonishing speed. Cree! When this punch was thrown out, it was as if a heavy bomb had been placed in the air. Countless air waves exploded, emitting tens of thousands of sharp whistling sounds. The momentum was extremely shocking. This punch had already surpassed the first Bamboo Hat Man's. Not even experts on the level of Sikong Yuanjia or the Black Yin ancestor could compare. But a moment later, a palm as white as jade appeared in front of the second Bamboo Hat Man's fist and blocked it. The clash of fist and palm unleashed a heaven-shaking explosion. Boom! 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 It was like several dozen experts were clashing with all their strength. With Song Yuani and the second Bamboo Hat Man at the center, peerless stellar energy surged into the air for several hundred feet, like countless bolts of lightning exploding in the darkness. Bang! In a cloud of dust, the second Bamboo Hat Man was forced back 10 some steps. Meanwhile, Song Yuani stood motionless in the air like a boulder. That earth-shattering collision actually couldn't make him move even half a step. For a moment the world fell silent. Everyone on the battlefield who saw this scene changed their expressions. Even the second bamboo hat man was stunned. He knew that Song Yuani was very strong, but he had never imagined that the experts of the martial arts world would be this strong. Even with his strength, he was unable to shake Song Yuani. At the same time, on the summit, Wang Chong was also stunned by this sight. Wang Chong had always believed that no matter how strong Song Yuani was, he would not be too ridiculously strong, and that he would be able to put up a fight against him. But when he saw this sight, Wang Chong realized that he had deeply underestimated the Alliance Lord of the Jingqi League. At this moment, Wang Chong finally understood why, given his master's status and strength, Song Yuani had become a formidable foe. Just the palm that he had used to push back the second bamboo hat man meant that Song Yuani was one of the world's supreme experts. Wait! At this moment, Wang Chong's eyes blinked as he noticed something unusual in the darkness. On this mountain, wherever Song Yuani's explosive stellar energy passed through, green grass began to sprout from the rocky ground. Around 20 paces from Song Yuani, a small yellow flower the size of a pinky blossomed on a piece of wood that had been used to light a bonfire. The immortal universe eternal spring mantra. As this thought flitted through Wang Chong's mind, great waves surged through his mind. If Wang Chong had only been speculating at the start, now that he saw this sight, Wang Chong was certain that this reigning Alliance Lord of the Jingqi League cultivated one of the supreme arts of the Central Plains, the immortal universe eternal spring mantra, one of the 10 supreme arts of the Central Plains. In his last life, Wang Chong had only heard of this supreme art, but this was the first time he had seen it with his own eyes. Among the arts of the righteous path, this art was second only to the supreme and infinite origin immortal art, and the art of God and demon obliteration, ranking third. In his last life, Wang Chong had wandered from place to place, drifting from a clan of ministers and generals to the wilderness, so he had little understanding of the affairs of the sections. Wang Chong had never imagined that the immortal universe eternal spring mantra, known to be unfathomable and require at least 20 years of hard work, would appear in front of him in this manner. This martial art had an extremely harsh requirement on one's talent and comprehension. Most importantly, even though it was one of the top 10 mystical martial arts, and was extremely powerful, there was no shortcut to this martial art. It needed to be done step by step, and it would take an extremely long time to succeed. Thus, after his reincarnation, Wang Chong had never even thought about obtaining the immortal universe eternal spring mantra, as he simply didn't have 20 years to cultivate it. But now, it had appeared in front of him. A person who could spend 20 years tempering their temperament and slowly cultivate their own art was definitely a person of perseverance and unyielding will. They were extremely difficult to deal with. For a moment, Wang Chong felt an intense apprehension as he looked at Song Yuani's back. Putting aside everything else, this alone made Song Yuani an extremely frightening opponent. I didn't think that the martial arts world would have someone like you. In the night wind, the second bamboo hat man stood in the air, his head slightly lowered, his black cape flapping in the wind. As one of the leaders of the men in black, he rarely spoke even in front of his target, much less an outsider. But this Alliance Lord of the Jingqi League had used his own strength to win his respect. For the first time, he had made an exception and spoken. But you will die all the same. A frigid light flashed through his eyes, and a moment later, the second bamboo hat man's body darkened, and he vanished once more. At the same time, the black whip made of the darkest fire of Mara howled through the air. It seemed to be controlled by someone else, and as it swung, it once more shot toward Song Yuani like a serpent. There was no question that Song Yuani was now his number one foe. If he wanted to kill his target, and also prevent Song Yuani from killing all the men in black, he had to kill him. Bum bum bum. A moment later, stellar energy exploded, unleashing black waves of energy that flooded the area for more than 100 feet around Song Yuani. The second bamboo hat man's greater void step was much faster than anyone else's, And it was also much more unpredictable. His attack could appear in any direction, like a ghost, making it impossible to guard against. And Song Yuani had become the center of his attacks. There was a series of explosions as countless holes were blasted into the mountain. The banners of the Jingqi League snapped in two, and before they could even fall to the ground, they were pulverized along with the hard rocks of the mountain. Clang! 7 or 8 swords stabbed into the ground were shattered into countless pieces by the waves of energy. In the face of the power of the battle between the two, even these swords made from the toughest and best quality steel could not withstand it at all. The battle between the two top-tier experts was so powerful that even Xue Tong and the others were shocked and backed away. Only Wang Chong stood at the edge of the clash, avoiding the edge of the clash. At the same time, he restrained his energy to the extreme and focused on the battle. These two were extremely powerful opponents. If he hadn't accidentally disguised himself as young Master Qingyang and sneaked into the Jingqi League, he would have been the one facing these men in black. At any other time, he would have been fine, but he could not recklessly use the great Yin-Yang Heaven creation art. If he ran into these people again, he would truly be in grave danger. It seems like I really have to thank Song Yuan this time. Wang Chong glanced at the distant Song Yuan, who was anxiously treating the Jingqi League disciples. The two bamboo hat men who had suddenly appeared were stronger than any of the men in black he had encountered before. They had come with a menacing aura and had brought many people with them. Moreover, deep in the darkness at the base of the mountain, Wang Chong sensed that there was an even more powerful aura waiting to strike. If not for Song Yuan, he would have been in grave danger, even if he didn't dare to say that he wouldn't have been able to escape. As for Song Yuan, given the strength he had displayed, he was definitely a powerful foe. Moreover, he had brought so many people with him to capture his master, and even Wang Chong himself. By using the strength of these men in black to wear down a portion of their strength, Wang Chong and his master would be able to reduce the danger they would have to face in the future. The Eternal Spring Mantra truly is profound. In a head-on clash, these two bamboo hat men are no match for him. As the winds howled, Wang Chong's hair danced in the wind as a cold light flashed through his eyes. Thick smoke roiled through the battlefield and stellar energy was in disarray. The bamboo hat man, in particular, was moving with such incredible speed that the naked eye couldn't keep up with him. For many people, this battle had completely surpassed their imaginations and made it impossible to see anything from it. But to Wang Chong, he was completely unaffected. Chapter 1388. Translator. Ryuxinji Editor. H2DH2 Mr. in the air. Song Yuani was like a rock in the middle of the ocean, his expression calm and unperturbed. No matter which direction the attack came from, he only needed to raise his hand and snap his finger to easily nullify it. In the face of this intense battle, Song Yuani seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll through his courtyard. Even Wang Chong couldn't help but be moved by this sight. In a battle between experts, especially experts of the same level, no one could be like Song Yuani, their feet seemingly rooted to the ground. Just the impact of this powerful stellar energy on one's internal organs was something that even great generals would find hard to endure. But Song Yuani seemed completely unaffected. The immortal universe eternal spring mantra truly is formidable. Its energy seeps into one's internal organs like the fibers of wood, supporting them. Moreover, it can rapidly heal any injury in Song Yuani's body. Moreover, because it's within his body, he consumes pitifully little stellar energy. In this aspect alone, no one in the world can last as long as Song Yuani, fighting him head-on, punching his flesh with every punch. In terms of endurance, there is no art that can surpass the immortal universe eternal spring mantra. Wang Chong's eyes flashed, and his thoughts flickered through his pupils. This was his first time witnessing the immortal universe eternal spring mantra in battle. Each of the 10 great arts of the Central Plains had its own unique ability, and very few people had ever seen it. Wang Chong had benefited greatly from this battle. From the battle between Song Yuani and the bamboo hat man, Wang Chong had comprehended a few other things. The people of these sects focused on single combat, and they had deeply studied it. Every move and technique had reached a level of simplicity and dexterity. This was completely different from the battlefield, where thousands of soldiers and horses fought together. Not only that, but Wang Chong was observing the battle from the perspective of energy through the origin world of air. What he saw was completely different from what the others saw. The thick smoke and dust didn't affect him at all, and the greater void escape couldn't escape his eyes at all. More importantly, through the world of energy, Wang Chong could clearly see the countless threads of energy circulating on Song Yuanyi's body, and he could also see the profound trajectory of the bamboo hat man's greater void step. This was something Wang Chong couldn't see when he was in battle. Every time the two of them collided, exchanged blows, came into contact, attacked and counterattacked, Wang Chong could see all of it clearly in his eyes. This was something that no one else on the mountain could do. Buzz! As he was paying attention to the battle between Song Yuanyi and the bamboo hat man, Wang Chong suddenly sensed something and immediately turned his head to look down the mountain. A moment later, Wang Chong grimaced, and with a gentle push of his foot, he vanished into the darkness. The moment Wang Chong vanished, a massive energy erupted from the earth like an erupting volcano. Crack. Cracking sounds could be heard as the sky darkened, and the peak of the mountain split open. Before anyone could react, a huge hand formed from stone suddenly emerged from the depths of the earth, each of its fingers as thick as a stone pillar. First came the rough and mottled hand, and then the massive arm behind it. Before anyone could react, the titanic hand suddenly reached out with lightning speed toward the Jingqi League Lord Song Yuanyi. Sensing the giant palm descending on his head, Song Yuanyi raised his head, his expression changing slightly. But before he could dodge, bang! In a flash of light, the titanic hand grabbed Song Yuanyi. Alliance Lord! All the Jingqi League disciples paled at this sight and cried out in alarm. On the other hand, the men in black were invigorated. The leader has taken action. The eyes of the men in black glowed, as if they had been injected with a shot of adrenaline. The Jingqi League was far more troublesome than they had imagined, and the Jingqi League Lord in particular was even more difficult to deal with. But if the leader overseeing the situation in the rear took action, everything would be different. Kill them. Leave none alive. Crimson Eye bellowed in the darkness. They had lost many men in this battle, and all of them were furious. No one had ever inflicted such heavy losses on them, not even the young Marquis of the Tang dynasty. The Jingqi League had succeeded in rousing their killing intent. The battle between the two sides intensified. Bang bang bang. Bang bang bang. More and more righteous alliance disciples and men in black collapsed in pools of blood. In the end, I still have to do it. In the darkness, the last bamboo hat man, who also had the highest status, suddenly took a step forward and said, "Let's go." He did not care about the casualties of his subordinates. No matter how many of these low-level servants died, it was meaningless to him. What he truly cared about was that so many people had still not found their target. Truly a group of trash. The third bamboo hat man's eyes flashed with cold light. But even so, the lord of the Jingqi League, Song Yuanyi, had succeeded in attracting his attention. Whether or not they were the target, no person or faction in the world could defy them. Regardless of what they had been thinking at the start, the moment they joined hands with their target, their fate was sealed. Boom! At this moment, an earth-shattering sound came from the top of the mountain. As countless people watched, the stone arm of the Titan was blasted to pieces by an explosion of energy. In a flash of light, Song Yuanyi's figure once more appeared before everyone's eyes. His clothes were as white as snow, his demeanor relaxed, and his body appeared to be completely unharmed. That heavy blow did not seem to have done any damage to him. Even the nearby bamboo hat man couldn't help but grimace at this sight. It was not impossible to block that blow, but it was impossible to be like Song Yuanyi, completely unscathed. Finally unable to restrain yourself, you've decided to strike. Song Yuanyi paid no attention to the bamboo hat man. His sharp and profound gaze fixed on the distant bamboo hat man who had yet to strike. He had never cared about the other two bamboo hat men. From start to finish, he had only been paying attention to one of them. At almost the same time, the bamboo hat leader seemed to sense Song Yuanyi's gaze and gave a scornful laugh. That attack just now had only been an appetizer, a warm-up for the real battle. Swish! All of a sudden, there was a sound like silk tearing. With his spine as the center, the bamboo hat leader's back suddenly split open, revealing his body beneath his clothes. As his clothes split open, the bamboo hat man took a step forward. Boom! Like a boulder crashing down, the air in a radius of several thousand zhang around the bamboo hat leader shuddered, as a terrifying energy erupted from his body, causing the surrounding space to distort. Not only that, the moment the bamboo hat leader stepped forward, the earth quaked as if unable to endure the power of his foot. Roar! A roar that sounded like that of a wild beast came from the treetops. A moment later, the bamboo hat leader's body began to grow like bamboo after the rain, a metallic luster emerging from the depths of his skin. Cackalack! In the blink of an eye, the man in black had grown to 10-some feet tall, and he was still rapidly growing, thickening and bulkier. Bang! The black robe he had used to conceal his identity had long ago been pulverized, and the symbolic bamboo hat on his head had been blown into the air. From a distance, through the darkness, the third bamboo hat man had vanished, replaced by a dazzling golden man. The golden man floated in the air and grew at a rapid speed. 1 zhang, 2 zhang, 3 zhang. In the blink of an eye, the golden man had turned into a golden giant that was more than 3 zhang tall. Moreover, it was still growing. As his body transformed, a dreadful destructive energy erupted from the bamboo hat leader's body. Just sensing this energy from a distance was enough to make one's heart tremble in fear. Buzz! The first to see this sight were the Jingqi League disciples, fighting at the base of the mountain. What is that? Everyone be careful! The Jingqi League disciples widened their eyes in unease. In the sky above the mountain, Song Yuanyi stared at the golden giant in the air, a look of apprehension on his face for the first time. Only now did the main theme of the battle begin. Although the final opponent had yet to move, the beastly energy he exuded far surpassed that of any of the bamboo hat men. Even Song Yuanyi couldn't help but feel an intense sense of danger. It's time to end this battle. And you little ant, even if you hide here, you won't be able to escape. In the treetops, the third bamboo hat man had already vanished, leaving behind an angry golden giant 20 to 30 meters tall. His body was as tough as steel, and his muscles bulged out from beneath his skin, brimming with destructive energy. Bang! Chapter 1389. The golden giant seemed to move slowly, but in a few moments, he had traversed the sky and arrived at the foot of the mountain. His right foot stepped forward, not on the air, but on the mountain for the first time. Bzz. The moment his 5 metallic toes touched the surface of the mountain, the earth violently trembled, as if on the verge of splitting apart. This sort of momentum was like that of a god descending from the 9 heavens, descending upon the mortal world. To dare oppose us gods, all of you must die. The golden giant looked down from high above, his eyes like copper bells sweeping over the ant-like Jingqi League disciples on the mountain. The Jingqi League disciples paled at the sight of this godly giant, expressions of shock and fear on their faces. No one had ever seen this sort of martial art before. It was completely different from the dragons and qilins that the Black Yin ancestor, Ouyang Changheng, and the others had transformed into. This was definitely not a manifestation of stellar energy, but a true transformation of the physical body. An ordinary human 7 or 8 feet tall could actually transform into a golden giant 20 to 30 meters tall in the blink of an eye. This completely surpassed their imaginations. Evil art, this is evil art. A righteous alliance expert, his face stricken with fear, suddenly shouted, Evil art? Ignorant ants, this is the means of a god. The golden giant said in a low, muffled voice, a mocking and disdainful smile on his lips. Don't be afraid of him. He only has brute strength. Everyone, let's kill him together. All of a sudden someone shouted, under extreme pressure and fear. Humans would either flee or react in the opposite direction. Swish! In a flash of light, a Jingqi League disciple charged at the golden giant, and then a second. In an instant, the other Jingqi League disciples followed suit, charging at the golden giant in the center from all directions. Everyone don't be afraid. His body is huge, making him the best target. Attack from all directions. Everyone, let's kill him together. The Zhengqi League disciples roared as they charged at the giant. When people are stimulated by fear, they can erupt with even greater potential. One after another, explosions and surges of stellar energy could be heard. The energy bursting out of these Zhengqi League disciples was even more turbulent and majestic than before the battle. Be careful. Almost at the same time, the elders of the Zhengqi League also joined in the attack. Compared to the ordinary disciples, their realms were higher and more powerful. With a flash of light, waves of tyrannical power covered the sky and earth, blasting toward the golden giant from all directions. In an instant, a storm of attacks came from all directions and surrounded the golden giant. Ignorant. Seeing this, the golden giant merely smirked in disdain. In the next moment, under the gazes of countless people, the golden giant suddenly punched out. Rumble! In an instant, a golden light burst out from the golden giant's right fist. This light was extremely dense and tyrannical. In the eyes of the crowd, it was as if a giant golden wave had appeared in the air and rushed toward all the elders and disciples of the Zhengqi League. There was an earth-shattering boom, and in that instant time seemed to stop. Under the fearful gazes of the crowd, wherever the golden wave passed, the stellar energy bursting out of the Zhengqi League elders and disciples seemed to freeze. In the blink of an eye, they turned into grayish-brown rocks and fell to the ground. Rumble! After a momentary pause, the golden wave spread out in all directions at a speed that was difficult to see with the naked eye, striking all the elders and disciples of the Zhengqi League. A golden light swept past a Zhengqi League disciple. Under the fearful gazes of the crowd, this Zhengqi League disciple's body first stiffened, and then his long hair, starting from the ends of his hair, then the surface of his body, his clothes, his skin, his nails, and finally his entire body. Bang! In the next moment, this Zhengqi League disciple turned into a lifelike stone statue and fell to the ground, sending countless stone chips flying. Bang! Almost at the same time that this Zhengqi League disciple fell, another petrified Zhengqi League disciple fell to the ground, followed by a third, a fourth, a fifth. In the blink of an eye, wherever the golden light passed, all the disciples and elders of the Zhengqi League within 50 meters of the golden giant, along with their stellar energy, were all petrified and fell heavily to the ground. With just a single punch, the golden giant had taken away all of their lives. There were no longer any bodies of flesh and blood here, only stone statues. Whoosh! A gust of night wind whistled through the mountain, and in an instant, the entire mountain fell silent. Countless pairs of eyes stared at this scene, their scalps tingling, their hearts chilled, and their faces paled. How is this possible? What kind of sorcery is this? High up on the mountain, a Zhengqi League expert muttered to himself with trembling lips. These words voiced the fear in the hearts of countless people. No one had ever seen a martial art like this. He could actually turn flesh and blood into solid stone, and even formless stellar energy could be petrified by him. This was no longer within the realm of martial arts. There were no words that could explain this golden giant's ability. Just as this Zhengqi League expert had said, this was sorcery. The Zhengqi League Alliance Lord Song Yuani and Wang Chong were also shocked. Even someone as experienced as Song Yuani couldn't help but turn grave at this sight. Just who are these people? A cold light exploded from Song Yuani's eyes. From the very start of the assault, the attacks of the men in black had been completely without rhyme or reason, and their martial arts were unlike any of the martial arts that the martial arts world knew of. But seeing so many disciples killed made Song Yuani's heart seethe with rage. I'll kill you first. Then I'll deal with that giant. Song Yuani's eyes chilled as he quickly locked onto the second bamboo hat man. Swish! With a flick of Song Yuani's finger, several blazing bolts of energy shot toward the second bamboo hat man. At the same time, Song Yuani's body swayed and he vanished. This was the first time he had taken the initiative to attack. Boom! With a heaven-shaking boom, Song Yuani and the second bamboo hat man collided. The second bamboo hat man had already used the greater void step to dodge, But Song Yuani was still able to accurately predict his movements and forcefully pull him in. Whoosh! In the face of Song Yuani's first attack, the second bamboo hat man trembled and vomited blood. When Song Yuani used his full strength, not even he was a match. You've killed so many of my disciples. Do you really think that this one can't do anything to you? Song Yuani's icy voice echoed over the mountain, and as he spoke, 60 to 70 bolts of energy erupted from Song Yuani's body and engulfed the second bamboo hat man. As Song Yuani switched from defense to offense, even the second bamboo hat man found it difficult to resist, and his face instantly paled. On the other side, Wang Chong suffered the greatest blow. Whether it was the men in black or Song Yuani, only Wang Chong had a thorough understanding of both sides. Just what sort of supreme technique is this? They have an endless array of techniques that I've never even heard of or seen before. Just where did these people come from? Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil, his mind in turmoil. This was not his first time interacting with the men in black, but the more he interacted with them, the more confused Wang Chong became. These people were like a ball of mist that could be seen but not touched. Even for a secretive faction like the Confucian sect, Wang Chong could still find records of them in the history books and understand their origins. But these men in black only seemed more and more mysterious the closer one got to them. Up until now, the only book that Wang Chong had ever read about them was the Book of Paimon. But not even Paimon, who was known in the legends of the Sassanid dynasty and the Arabian Empire as the 72 demon gods, had been able to understand their origins, much less their goals. They were like ghosts that appeared in the long river of history, but when one looked carefully, one would discover that there was nothing there. And even now, Wang Chong had no idea how these people had found out about him. From the southwest to the northwest, these people seemed to be doggedly pursuing him, but Wang Chong had never been able to understand the true reason. Song Yuani is in danger. As these thoughts flitted through his mind, Wang Chong quickly noticed that 20 to 30 meter tall golden giant striding toward the summit. His pace seemed very slow, but it was actually extremely fast. Golden waves surged around him, and all the Jingqi League disciples struck by the golden waves were turned into stone and toppled to the ground. The stellar energy in the air was turned into grayish-brown stones by the golden waves, which rained down from the sky and covered the summit, leaving a trail in the path of the golden giant's advance. In the face of the golden giant's terrifying strength and pressure, everyone's faces were filled with fear, and they all retreated as if they were avoiding the plague. On the mountain, Song Yuani's expression gradually turned grave. Back off. It was the voice of the golden giant. It was incomparably majestic. In the face of an opponent like Song Yuani, the golden giant was too proud to work together with anyone else. Thish! In a flash of light, the second bamboo hat man, who had already been on the verge of collapse, immediately used the greater void step to endure one of Song Yuani's finger energies and put some distance between them. Just when the second bamboo hat man retreated from the battle, boom! A moment later, Song Yuani and the golden giant collided in the air. One of their fists was small, and the other big. The small one was just a normal fist, while the big one was like a mountain. However, the two of them exploded with equally powerful strength. Chapter 1390. Clatter! Clatter! Countless stones rained down from the sky, and in the blink of an eye, the two clashed once more. Boom! There was a thunderous boom, and the sky seemed to be tearing apart. Once, twice, thrice, Song Yuani and the golden giant, that was the leader of the black-clothed men, clashed repeatedly, their fists meeting flesh with flesh. Neither retreated. The leader's golden waves surged majestically, constantly crashing over in an attempt to turn Song Yuani into stone. But even a powerful existence like the golden giant had encountered a tough opponent this time. The petrifying golden waves constantly turned Song Yuani's stellar energy into stone, but they were never able to get past the lightning. At Song Yuani's level of cultivation, even an existence like the golden giant would find it very difficult to easily defeat him. Song Yuani's strength is still a little inferior to the golden giant, but Wang Chong was hidden in a certain place on the mountain, his gaze slowly turning to another place. There, the first and second bamboo hat men had begun to move, wantonly slaughtering their way up the mountain. Even though the other elders and experts were doing their utmost to stop them, they were still no match. Just the fire of Mara, which could burn stellar energy, was something that the elders and experts of the Jingqi League were unable to stop. It's about time to leave. Wang Chong swept his gaze over the chaotic mountain and said to himself. This temporary base of the Jingqi League had become extremely dangerous to him. Song Yuani was searching everywhere for him, and while the two bamboo hat men were slaughtering their way up the mountain, they were also searching for him. As long as his identity was exposed, the two groups of people who were originally engaged in a chaotic battle would most likely attack him. He had already seen Song Yuani's eternal spring mantra and understood the strength of the men in black. Now was the best time to leave. It's time to find Master and the others, Wang Chong said to himself. Some things were best left undone. After spending a day on the mountain, it was about time to leave. As this thought flitted through Wang Chong's mind, he quickly made his way to the back of the mountain, where there were the least people. What do I do? These men in black are too powerful. Have the Vice Lord and the others not arrived yet? Wang Chong had only walked a short distance when he heard a voice in the darkness. Wang Chong's brow creased and he stopped. Vice Lord. A hint of surprise flashed through Wang Chong's eyes as he turned in the direction of the voice. There, two wounded Jingqi League experts were gathered together, discussing something. Wang Chong had been with the Jingqi League for some time, and had seen many elders and experts, but he had never heard of the Jingqi League having a Vice Lord. From afar, he heard the two men continue. The Vice Lord said that he would rush to the northwest after dealing with the matter there to deal with the evil emperor, but the Vice Lord's matter ended more than 10 days ago, and there's a messenger pigeon saying that the Vice Lord is already on his way here. It's already been more than 10 days, so there's no reason for him not to appear. In the darkness, one of the Jingqi League experts said. His first words made Wang Chong's heart skip a beat. As the Vice Lord of the Jingqi League, his strength was definitely above that of Ouyang Changheng and Sikong Yuanjia. Song Yuani alone was already difficult enough to deal with. Adding a powerful Vice Lord to the mix, this trip to the northwest would be extremely disadvantageous for Wang Chong and the others. If that's the case, the Jingqi League has probably mobilized all of their forces. Master's appearance this time has attracted a lot of their attention. Perhaps even Master has underestimated the danger of this trip to the northwest. Wang Chong thought to himself, feeling a little uneasy. In the distance, the two men still hadn't noticed Wang Chong. The League had also said that the Vice Lord and the others would be here in the next 2 days. Judging from the time, they shouldn't be too far away from us. Now that the situation is dire, we can only give it a try no matter what. Tell the Vice Lord and the others to hurry over. Other than the Vice Lord, none of us can deal with the other two black-clothed men. The other injured Jingqi League expert said. There's no other way. We can only try this as a last resort. Send the signal. No matter what, we must tell the Vice Lord and the others to hurry over as soon as possible. The first Jingqi League expert said. Having made up their minds, the two quickly left. In just a few moments, a messenger pigeon rose into the sky and flew into the distance. Almost at the same time, there was a piercing whistle, and in the next instant, a dazzling firework soared into the sky. It rose several hundred meters into the sky before exploding violently. Boom! Under the gazes of countless people, the firework blossomed into a dazzling yin-yang diagram of a crane in the darkness. It was the symbol of the Jingqi League. At that moment, under the illumination of the firework, the entire mountaintop was illuminated by the light of the firework. It could be seen from dozens of miles away. Wang Chong was already halfway up the mountain. When he saw the massive firework in the sky, his heart couldn't help but tremble. There was a reason why the Jingqi League was known as the #1 faction in the world of sections. Just this firework alone was enough for them to swiftly respond and provide timely reinforcements. Hurry up and find him. I don't believe that he can fly away. With the 3 lords guarding the base of the mountain, he can't possibly leave. Find him and don't let him escape no matter what. At this moment, a low and hoarse voice came from up ahead. 20 to 30 meters in front of Wang Chong, a black-clothed man spoke in a hoarse voice as he flew past. Wang Chong's heart trembled. He immediately slowed down and hid behind an extinguished bonfire on the mountain. At the same time, he concealed his aura to the extreme. The two clearly hadn't noticed Wang Chong, and they quickly disappeared to the other side of the mountain. They really aren't easy to deal with, Wang Chong thought to himself. He had originally thought that Song Yuanyi and the Zhengqi League had attracted all their attention, and that they would have no time to worry about him. However, it seemed that they had long since prepared for this move. Wanting to leave calmly was far from an easy task. Boom! Just as he was pondering, a figure suddenly smashed into the ground not far away from him with a loud boom. You crooked demons deserve to be punished by everyone. Today, this old man will enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and capture all of you demons in one fell swoop. In the air, a righteous alliance elder, his clothes flapping in the wind, came in pursuit, his body covered in blood. Unflappable. You can't even take care of yourself. Yet you still want to kill me. A sinister voice rang out. On the ground, the black-clothed man who had just crashed into the ground slapped his body with his right hand and used a void movement technique to swiftly charge at the Zhengqi League elder. Blood Eye's heart was currently filled with rage. This operation against their target had never gone smoothly. Not only had a group of people died in Luyao City, but they had also lost quite a few people here. He had originally believed that this was just a small faction that could be easily taken down, but he hadn't expected them to be so troublesome that even the three leaders had been unable to easily kill them. Lowly ants, how dare you oppose us? Only death awaits you. Blood Eye's expression was ferocious as he used his void movement technique to the extreme. He turned into a blurry shadow that drifted unpredictably toward the Zhengqi League elder. Each of his attacks was aimed at his vitals, and the black flames surged and surged toward the Zhengqi League elder. It's him. Almost at the same time, Wang Chong also noticed Blood Eye not far away. This wasn't the first time he had fought with the black-clothed man. With just one look, Wang Chong could tell that this man held a high position in the organization. Not only that, Wang Chong vaguely remembered that this man was the one leading the charge when the eagle swooped down from the sky. More importantly, this man was simply too close. If Wang Chong moved, he would probably be discovered immediately. In the blink of an eye, thoughts flashed through Wang Chong's mind, and in the next moment, an idea immediately formed in his mind. Instead of acting rashly, he waited silently. Not far away, Blood Eye's attention was completely focused on the Zhengqi League elder. He didn't even notice Wang Chong, who had fallen to the ground like a rock and had retracted his aura. He moved faster and faster, and his entire being became more and more excited. He could sense that the Zhengqi League elder was about to collapse. In just a short while, he had already added 5 or 6 new wounds to his body, each one so deep that bones could be seen. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before this Zhengqi League elder died without a doubt. Just when the Righteous Alliance elder was about to fall to Blood Eye's attacks, an enormous wave of psychic energy crashed into Blood Eye's mind. Boom! Without any warning, an enormous tide of psychic energy slammed into Blood Eye's mind. Even with Xuetong's strength, he was completely unprepared for such a sudden attack. It was as if someone had smashed his mind with a hammer. His mind went blank, and even his body stiffened for a moment. Under normal circumstances, this sort of momentary pause would not have mattered. But in this intense battle, this opening was fatal. Pfft! In the blink of an eye, the sound of a sharp blade piercing through flesh could be heard. The moment Xuetong's body froze, a long sword pierced into his chest. Immediately after, a palm with the strength of a mountain smashed Xuetong's head into pieces. After losing his head, Blood Eye's body trembled twice, and he fell stiffly to the ground. What's going on? Even the Zhengqi League elder was stunned that he had killed this formidable opponent in black with a single palm strike. His eyes flickered with uncertainty as he quickly scanned his surroundings. However, it was all quiet, and there was nothing around him. It was as if everything had been an illusion. Am I really seeing things? Chapter 1391. Only after he left did Wang Chong stand up from the pile of corpses behind the bonfire. Glancing in the direction the elder had left, Wang Chong leaped down the mountain. Suddenly, Wang Chong's eyes widened as he glanced at Xue Tong's headless corpse. He had been heading down the mountain, but he suddenly changed directions and flew back to Xue Tong's side. He extended his right hand and pulled out the secret tome that had been protruding from Xue Tong's chest. This secret tome had originally been hidden in a secret place on Xue Tong's body, but the intense battle and his final fall had revealed a section of the tome. Wang Chong had clashed with the men in black many times, but he had never found any treasures on them. These men in black had always been clean and efficient, and they never carried anything unnecessary on their bodies. For this reason, this part of the tome was extremely unique. Wang Chong opened it, glanced at it, and immediately saw 3 words on the cover. Void movement technique. These 3 words caused Wang Chong's heart to tremble. It's this! Wang Chong was both surprised and delighted. This was definitely an unexpected harvest. These men in black had a mysterious background, but their martial arts were indescribably powerful. Whether it was the fire of Ju Bai, the fire of Mara, or the fire of Lu Wu, they were all extremely powerful energies. Moreover, the movement technique that these black-clothed men had recently displayed was another type of extremely mysterious martial art. Their movement techniques were extremely fast. If not for the fact that Wang Chong had comprehended the origin of energy and was able to track their movements through energy, even someone of the same cultivation level as him would have already fallen for their tricks. Most importantly, for Wang Chong, movement techniques had never been his forte. The top-notch movement techniques that these black-clothed men had recently displayed had practically surpassed most of the techniques in the world, and had also perfectly complemented Wang Chong's deficiencies. Moreover, under the current situation of qi deviation, this secret art could also increase Wang Chong's ability to escape and survive in all kinds of situations. Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly kept the void escaping technique book. There was chaos in the night, and shouts could be heard incessantly. Wang Chong ran down the mountain, encountering many men in black and disciples of the Zhengqi League along the way. Taking advantage of the cover of the night, Wang Chong didn't alert anyone and quickly ran all the way to the foot of the mountain. In just a moment, he would be able to leave without attracting anyone's attention. Screech! Just as he was a few meters away from the foot of the mountain, a shrill cry suddenly rang out from the sky. This shrill cry was extremely ear-piercing and abrupt. Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat, and he abruptly raised his head. High up in the sky, he saw a huge black shadow gliding past him with its wings spread open. It was a giant black eagle. The stars were dim in the night, but Wang Chong could clearly see that the eyes of the giant eagle were as sharp as a hawk's. They were like 2 stars that emitted a dazzling light. The eagle's gaze was looking down, and it kept circling around the mountain, as if searching for something. Buzz! In that instant, Wang Chong's expression froze, and a strong sense of fear rose in his heart. This is what the black-clothed men are using to target me. It was completely instinctive, and Wang Chong immediately understood. There was no fighting on the outskirts of the mountain, and there was no need for the eagle to stand guard there. There was no doubt that the eagle was being used to prevent people from leaving the mountain. Even in the middle of a fierce battle, these black-clothed men had not let down their guard. They had arranged for the eagle to keep an eye on the surroundings in advance. Wang Chong had a feeling that while the 3 bamboo hat men, especially their leader, were fiercely battling with Song Yuanyi, the moment they were exposed, they would immediately abandon Song Yuanyi and come for him. Walala! As he was thinking, he heard a sound nearby. Wang Chong turned his head and saw a boulder rolling down the mountain. It seemed like it had been blown down by the shockwaves from the battle on the mountain. Screech! A shrill cry came from the sky. It was the eagle. Almost at the same time, a black blast of stellar energy surged forth like a bolt of lightning. It violently struck a boulder that was tumbling down the mountain and exploded it into pieces. Buzz! Wang Chong looked in the direction of the stellar energy and saw a black-clothed man quickly drawing back his palm, apparently having also noticed that it was a boulder. The black-clothed man quickly retreated, his eyes warily gazing at the mountain. Wang Chong's heart sank at this sight. Wang Chong took advantage of this moment to scan his surroundings. This time, Wang Chong immediately noticed a few details that he had not noticed before. At the base of the mountain, around 30 to 40 meters from the foot of the mountain, a group of black-clothed men stood motionless. Even though the battle on the mountain was fierce, they had no intention of joining the fray. They stood guard at various places around the mountain range, constantly looking around vigilantly. Any movement in the wind or grass would attract their attention. What these people were paying attention to had nothing to do with the battle, the eagle in the sky and the black-clothed men on the ground. In an instant, Wang Chong's heart sank. The black-clothed man's guard against him was tight to the extreme. If he wanted to leave without alerting anyone, it would not be as easy as he imagined it to be. This is a little troublesome. Wang Chong frowned secretly. With his current ability, he could, of course, force a breakthrough and quickly break out of the encirclement. However, if he did so, Song Yuanyi, the leader of the black-clothed men who had transformed into a golden giant, would probably notice him. The same would be true for the other black-clothed men. It would not be easy to get rid of them so easily. Looks like I have to think of another way, Wang Chong thought to himself as countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Although the black-clothed men had set up a blockade in advance, it was not that there was no way for Wang Chong to leave. It would just be a little more troublesome. Swoosh! As Wang Chong hit himself and began to think, he was suddenly alarmed. A shrill sound, as soft as the buzz of a mosquito, came from behind him. Bzzz! Wang Chong stepped forward, leaving a blur in his wake, as he immediately dodged to the side. Ding! A silver needle around 7 inches long, as thin as a cow's hair, brushed past Wang Chong, sinking into the rock in front of Wang Chong. The hard rock was as brittle as tofu in front of the fine needle. Young Master Qingyang, where are you planning to go? At this moment, a sinister and familiar voice came from behind him. Not far behind Wang Chong was Ji Andu, dressed in a black robe, his right shoulder and sleeve still stained with blood. He was sinisterly staring at Wang Chong. His eyes were as sinister as those of a venomous snake. Young Master Ji, what are you doing? Wang Chong took 2 steps back and looked at Ji Andu in surprise. Stop pretending. From the first day I saw you, I sensed that there was something strange about you. Although I don't know what's going on, you're definitely not some young Master Qingyang. Also, you were the one who ambushed me on the summit, weren't you? Ji Andu clenched his teeth, his eyes seething with killing intent. This night raid by the men in black had been completely inexplicable, especially that black-clothed assassin. He had inexplicably attracted a group of men in black to attack him, and then he had completely vanished. If not for the blood escape art of the evil path, he would have already died on the mountain. And when he reached the base of the mountain and realized that the 3 bamboo hat men were still being guarded, Ji Andu had no choice but to return to the mountain and hide. But after thinking it over, Ji Andu realized that the only person in the entire Zhengqi League who would dare to ambush him like this, and who had the motive to do so, was that young Master Qingyang. Protector Ji, I don't know what you're talking about. Your misunderstanding of me is far too deep, Wang Chong said as he stared at Ji Andu. It doesn't matter if you know or not. This time no one can save you. I'd like to see just how long you can pretend in front of me, Ji Andu coldly said, his eyes seething with killing intent. Bang! Ji Andu suddenly stepped forward, his robes and long hair fiercely dancing in the wind. As Wang Chong watched, an energy far stronger than before erupted from his body. Unlike before, this energy was extremely dark and sinister, exuding an indescribable evil. Moreover, Wang Chong could smell an intense stench of blood from it. Wang Chong was startled, and then he seemed to realize something. Ever since I joined the Zhengqi League and became a disciple of the righteous path, Song Yuanyi strictly forbade me from using this technique. But he can't even take care of himself right now, so I'd like to see who can do anything to you. It's none of your business, whether it's the real young Master Qingyang or the fake young Master Qingyang. All of you can turn into desiccated corpses. Ji Andu's face was covered in black energy, his expression savage. Boom! Before Wang Chong could respond, Ji Anda's body exploded with black energy, and then a black sun suddenly appeared behind him. It exuded a majestic attractive force, causing the surrounding sand and stones to fly into the air as streams of energy began to revolve around Ji Andu. Crack! With a crisp sound, even a nearby millstone-sized rock and the firewood around it were lifted into the air by Ji Anda's attractive force. What is this? Wang Chong couldn't help but widen his eyes. Ji Anda's energy gave him a familiar feeling. It was somewhat similar to the little Yin-Yang art, but even more powerful. It was similar to the great Yin-Yang heaven creation art, but Wang Chong's great Yin-Yang heaven creation art could not create this illusion of a black sun. Just what is he cultivating? Chapter 1392. Ji Andu had not received his master's true legacy, so he had no idea how to use the second half of the great Yin-Yang heaven creation art. Wang Chong had never imagined that this traitorous bastard Ji Andu would have comprehended a strange art on his own. But even so, this art was astonishingly powerful, and from Wang Chong's perspective, it possessed at least 40 to 50% of the great Yin-Yang heaven creation art's power. Trying to play tricks in front of me is truly displaying your slight skill before an expert. Today, I'll use this Yin-Yang art to grind your bones to dust, and then I'll push the blame onto these men in black. Ji Anda's sinister voice came from all around him, and a terrifying suction and stellar energy swept toward Wang Chong like a wave. In a flash, Wang Chong's expression turned extremely grave. Ji Anda's strength was secondary, but now that he was being forced, Wang Chong had no way of dodging and could easily fool his way through. In the current situation, Wang Chong could no longer continue to hide, and once he attacked, his previous excuses would fall apart. It seems like I can only risk breaking through, Wang Chong quietly said to himself. Once he attacked, Song Yuani and the black-clothed leader would immediately notice the situation. Wang Chong would have no choice but to force his way out. As for whether he could break through, and how far he could run, that would all depend on his luck. There was one thing that was beyond doubt. This was going to be a tough battle. Protector Ji, what are you doing? Just as Wang Chong and Ji Andu were about to engage in a vicious battle, a righteous and somewhat immature voice came from the side. A young figure charged forward, cutting between Ji Andu and Wang Chong. Song Ju. On the other side, Ji Andu was flabbergasted, and Wang Chong had also noticed this. Song Yuan's younger brother, Song Ju, had appeared in the surroundings at some point, and was now embroiled in his dispute with Ji Andu. Bastard, you're crazy, Ji Andu angrily roared, forcefully reversing the yin-yang art that had been hurtling toward Wang Chong, and then he flew back. Almost at the same time, Wang Chong pulled Song Ju and quickly retreated, increasing the distance between them. Song Ju, do you know what you're doing? Ji Andu was infuriated. Song Yuan was the daughter of the head of the Jingqi League, Song Yuani, and Song Ju was Song Yuan's cousin. The two siblings were extremely close. Although Ji Andu wanted nothing more than to kill Wang Chong, he wasn't so rash as to attack Song Ju as well. Ji Andu, I should be asking you that. Young Master Qingyang is an honored guest of our Jingqi League, and has helped our Jingqi League in the past. Are you crazy? You actually want to attack him? Song Ju's face was completely red as he clenched his fists tightly, and his expression was extremely excited. If he hadn't appeared, young Master Qingyang would have already been killed by Ji Andu. Damn it! Ji Andu was infuriated. He could easily kill Song Ju, but if he did so, he would no longer have any place to stand in the Jingqi League, or the martial arts world. No matter how bold Ji Andu was, he would never dare to oppose Song Yuani. Cree. While Ji Andu was still thinking, there was an explosion in the distance, and then a figure in the sky, a wave of energy tens of thousands of feet behind him, shot like a bolt of lightning toward the mountain where the Jingqi League was located. At this moment, the winds howled and the sand and stones were blown away. No one could describe what they felt like. Everyone could sense that the figure at the front of the wave of energy was suffused with an energy that seemed capable of devouring the heavens and the earth. Who goes there? Wang Chang's robes billowed in the wind, and as he looked up at the sky, his heart couldn't help but tremble. The figure that had suddenly appeared in the sky was like a comet, its body exploding with intense white light. Wang Chong sensed that this person was extremely dangerous, and the strength of this energy was actually on par with the Jingqi League Lord Song Yuanyi. The two seemed to be evenly matched, and this person's energy was even more tyrannical than Song Yuanyi's. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the figure had flown through the air and crashed into the summit of the mountain, sending up a cloud of dust several hundred feet into the air. The mountain swayed, and even the earth seemed on the verge of crumbling. Vice Alliance Lord Ji Anda sensed this and was also alarmed. He turned his head and looked up at the summit. Ji Anda had always given off the impression of being unruly, cold, and cruel, but at this moment, his face was tinged with deep apprehension and dread. It was as if he was extremely afraid of this figure. Rumble! In the blink of an eye, the world swayed as the figure began to fiercely battle with the bamboo hat man on the mountain. Vice Alliance Lord! Vice Alliance Lord! Vice Alliance Lord! In just a few short moments, all the Jingqi League disciples on the mountain were invigorated and erupted into heaven-shaking cheers. Kill! At almost the same time, the mountain in front of Wang Chong quaked as another group of Jingqi League experts flew toward him. The second wave of reinforcements from the Jingqi League had finally arrived. Song Ju, young Master Qingyang, why are you still here? Come, this place isn't safe. Come with me to the summit. The Vice Alliance Lord has already arrived. With him and Alliance Lord working together, victory is assured. At almost the same time, an elderly voice came from the side. As Wang Chong watched, Ouyang Changheng, his aura in disarray, hurried over from another direction. The sight of this Jingqi League elder caused Wang Chong's eyes to freeze. If he had any hope of leaving, Wang Chong had already lost it. Wang Chong looked at Song Ju in front of him, and then at Ouyang Changheng behind him, a complicated look in his eyes. Let's go. Since he could no longer leave, Wang Chong decided to give up on the idea of leaving and head up the mountain with Song Ju and Ouyang Changheng. On the other side, Ji Andu had already vanished. Wang Chong composed himself and retracted his aura as he followed Ouyang Changheng up the mountain. By the time Wang Chong reached the midpoint of the mountain, he could see that the entire mountain had been devastated. Half of the mountain had been blasted away, and sharp rocks littered the ground. In the sky above the mountain, Jingqi League Alliance Lord Song Yuanyi and a white-clothed man Wang Chong had never seen before were engaged in a fierce battle with 3 bamboo hat men. The chaotic battle between these 5 had turned this area into the most dangerous place. Flashing figures, twisting space, sharp whips, and blazing flames could be seen everywhere. The attacks of the 3 bamboo hat men were swift and fierce to the extreme. The golden giant in particular seemed intent on tearing apart space itself. Every time he attacked, golden light would erupt. At the same time, large amounts of stellar energy would transform these attacks into grayish-brown rocks that fell to the ground with loud clattering sounds. On the other side, Song Yuanyi was also pushing his energy to the limit. That unique stellar energy of the Eternal Spring sect radiated into the surrounding area. As soon as it touched the ground, it would take root and sprout, causing plants and wildflowers to sprout. Even the stellar energies unleashed by the 3 bamboo hat men sprouted leaves and flowers. But these things were quickly incinerated by the black fire of Mara. But what truly drew Wang Chong's attention was the cold and resolute white-clothed man who had appeared at Song Yuanyi's side. On the index finger of his left hand was a golden ring in the shape of a dragon. From a distance, the white-clothed man exuded a noble aura. But what truly drew Wang Chong's attention was this man's terrifying energy. Bang! Just like Song Yuanyi, this white-clothed man did not use a sword or saber. He only punched, and though the Great Bridge seems foolish, it had the power to shatter the heavens and rend the earth. With this punch, Wang Chong could clearly see the boundless stellar energy of the bamboo hat man on the other side being torn apart like paper. Even the golden giant that was 20 to 30 meters tall, when faced with an ordinary punch from the white-clothed man, had thousands of cracks appear on the golden waves around it, and then they dissipated. Compared to Song Yuanyi's endurance and recovery speed, The three bamboo hat men were clearly more apprehensive of this white-clothed man. Every time those cracks extended toward them, they would hastily retreat. It was apparent that they were extremely wary of those pitch-black cracks. Even though Wang Chong had been prepared, he couldn't help but be stunned at the sight of those cracks. The universe sundering's art. As he watched the white-clothed man shatter the attacks of the bamboo hat men again and again, a thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind. He instantly found it hard to remain calm. Even one of the 10 great arts of the Central Plains was extremely difficult to find, let alone two. Wang Chong had been extremely surprised to see the immortal Heaven Earth Eternal Spring mantra on Song Yuanyi. But this revered Vice Alliance Lord of the Jingqi League was also using one of the 10 great arts, and it was the Universe Sundering's art, renowned for its ability to shatter stellar energy. Although this technique wasn't ranked as high as the Origin Immortal Art, or the art of God and demon obliteration, it was extremely powerful in a battle between martial artists. It was said to be able to shatter all stellar energy techniques in the world, and even the toughest steel would crack like tofu in the face of the slightest touch. Song Yuanyi was already very strong, and with the addition of this Vice Alliance Lord, who had an even more offensive and aggressive art, the three bamboo hat men immediately began to struggle. Chapter 1393. Retreat! Everyone retreat for now. A thunderous roar resounded through the void. The golden giant on the mountain peak finally gave the order to retreat in a low, muffled voice. The Jingqi League was far more difficult to deal with than they had imagined. In the current situation, it would be very difficult to defeat them. Buzz! When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. The men in black at the base of the mountain were the first to retreat, followed by those halfway up the mountain, all of them madly fleeing into the darkness. Finally, the three bamboo hat men also began to flee. Humph! Where do you think you're going? With a cold snort, the Jingqi League's Vice Alliance Lord immediately gave chase, his robes flapping in the wind. But a moment later, a white mist spread out, swiftly sweeping toward Song Yuanyi and the Vice Alliance Lord. Careful! A voice came from behind. A hint of fear appeared in the white-clothed man's eyes. He could tell at a glance that this fog was poisonous, but he was not afraid. Boom! A tsunami of white stellar energy erupted from his body, instantly scattering the white fog. The stellar energy continued onward, striking the bamboo hat man, who was at the very back. Whoosh! This move was incredibly fast. Even though the third bamboo hat man had been prepared, he was still unable to endure the terrifying power of the sundering art. In a flash, his stellar energy crumbled, and he vomited a mouthful of blood. Under the effect of this huge force, he lost control of his body and somersaulted a few times. However, he also borrowed this force to increase his speed and quickly escaped into the night, escaping without a trace. Forget it, Guangting. Don't chase a cornered enemy. Song Yuanyi saw that the white-clothed man still wanted to give chase, so he immediately stopped him. In this brief delay, the men in black had already fled in different directions, vanishing from sight. Yuanyi, what's going on here? Where did such powerful opponents come from? And their techniques are so strange. Since his opponents had already fled, Xie Guangting could only give up on the pursuit and turn to Song Yuanyi. I don't know the origins of these men in black, so I can't answer your question. Let's treat the wounded first. We'll talk about this later. Song Yuanyi's face was a little pale. It was obvious that he had been injured in this fierce battle. However, he flicked his sleeves and slowly walked down from the sky. Chi! His gaze swept across the surroundings, and 5 fingers shot out from his sleeves. With a light flick, a dozen or so finger energies pierced through the air, and each of them landed on an injured Jingqi League disciple who was lying on the ground. Before defeating his opponent, Song Yuanyi didn't dare to expend too much energy. But now that the battle was over, everything was different. Ah! A series of painful groans could be heard as the Jingqi League disciples, who were lying motionless on the ground, coughed slightly and slowly crawled up from the ground. Their auras were still weak, but the color of their faces was visibly turning rosy. Even their injuries were rapidly healing. Alliance Lord, The crowd bowed when they saw Song Yuanyi, but Song Yuanyi showed weakness. He brushed past the crowd and rushed forward. Boom! He flicked his sleeves, and a boundless wave of eternal spring stellar energy surged out. Wherever the stellar energy passed, a large number of Jingqi League disciples, who had been lying on the ground, stood up, and their injuries healed. Even some of the Jingqi League disciples who had been poisoned by the celestial powder were dispelled by Song Yuanyi's eternal spring stellar energy, and they woke up one by one. Boom! In the end, Song Yuanyi's eternal spring mantra poured down from the top of the mountain like a wave. Many of the Jingqi League disciples stood up, but even more collapsed on the surface of the mountain, never to rise again. Many of these people had died in the process of fighting with the men in black, but there was also a significant portion who had been poisoned by the celestial powder. Because they had inhaled too much, they were deeply poisoned. Even Song Yuanyi's eternal spring mantra was useless. The celestial powder this time is different from the one we used last time. It's much more violent. As Wang Chong walked up the mountain, he swept his gaze across the surroundings and saw the miserable state of the disciples who had been poisoned by the celestial powder. In Luyao City, the men in black had also used the celestial powder on them, but that powder was colorless and odorless. It was mainly used to paralyze stellar energy and capture them alive. However, it was different this time. The poison was much more violent. Fortunately, the night wind only blows from one side. Otherwise, the losses would be even greater. Wang Chong thought to himself. The majority of the disciples who had died were concentrated on the east side of the mountain. The men in black had scattered the powder into the air and mixed it with the wind while they were defenseless, poisoning them. As far as Wang Chong could see, the skin, fingernails, lips, and faces of these people had all turned dry and black. They couldn't be more dead. Moreover, their bodies were contorted, a clear sign that they had been in excruciating pain. Although Song Yuanyi's eternal spring mantra was said to be able to regrow flesh and bones from the dead, it was still powerless in this situation. All was quiet once more, but the guards would need some time. After the battle was over, in a forest several dozen li away from the Jingqi Alliance base, the 3 bamboo hat men and the surviving men in black had gathered together. The bamboo hat leader, who had transformed into a golden giant, had dispersed his giant form and returned to his normal size. What's going on? It's been so long, but none of you have found any trace of the target? The bamboo hat leader asked, his face pale. Naked, he took a towel from one of his subordinates and wiped his face. His body was drenched in cold sweat, and if one looked carefully, one would notice that on his chest, there was a golden warrior totem that seemed to be alive. This totem pulsed with his muscles, even exuding waves of light. After this battle, the bamboo hat leader appeared extremely exhausted. Returning to his normal size from a golden giant of 20 to 30 meters, had not consumed much of his stellar energy, but it had been a painful torment to the body and extremely taxing on his stamina. This Jingqi Alliance lord was far more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. No, we've been searching everywhere, but we've found nothing. One by one, the black-clothed men lowered their heads. The bamboo hat leader's hand froze in the middle of wiping his face, and his eyes turned cold. Bang! At this moment, gang energy erupted. Before the black-clothed experts could react, they were sent flying like broken kites. With a loud bang, they smashed heavily into several thousand-year-old ancient trees. Even the trunks, which were thick enough for 3 to 4 people to wrap their arms around them, were smashed into pieces. Half of their bodies were embedded in the ground, and countless splinters of wood splashed everywhere. A bunch of useless things. Another bamboo hat man cursed as he sent his men flying with a palm, and then he slowly drew back his palm. This night raid could be described as a massive defeat. They had believed that victory was in the bag, but they had never expected this result. In the end, they didn't even know where the target was. This was simply humiliating. My lord, we've been standing guard at the base of the mountain this entire time. It was true that no one had ever left. We don't know what happened, but the spirit eagles shouldn't have failed. A man in black lowered his head and muttered, "Trash." The bamboo hat man's eyes chilled, and after glancing at the man in black, He sent out a burst of mental energy. A moment later, the man's eyes went slack, his hands clutching his throat as he kneeled on the ground, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. Chi! A stream of black blood suddenly burst out from his eyes, mouth, ears, and nose. With a pung sound, this black-clothed man fell to the ground motionless, without any signs of life. Only now did the bamboo hat man seem to feel a little better. The other men in black were silent, their heads lowered, not daring to say anything else. Forget it. The mission has failed, so killing them is useless. Even the immortal lord was alarmed and forced to take action. This target is not as easy to deal with as we imagined. At this moment, the third bamboo hat man who had been silent all this time finally spoke. The most urgent task is to think about what we should do next. The third bamboo hat man quickly turned his gaze to the ordinary men in black. All of you withdraw. We will summon you if we need anything. Yes, my lord. The group of black-clothed men were filled with terror and immediately scattered like birds and beasts. Only after the three men in black had dispersed did they turn their heads. My lord, how is it? Once there was no one else around, the second and third bamboo hat men turned to their leader. Even though the others had yet to react, believing that this was just a normal yellow scarf warrior withdrawing his cultivation, the two knew that his condition was rather bad. I underestimated him. I didn't think that there would be such a formidable figure in the martial arts world of the Central Plains. To be able to cultivate that technique to such a level. The leader of the bamboo hat men did not directly answer. Instead, he turned his gaze to the mountain where the battle with the Jingqi alliance had taken place. Slowly, a trickle of black blood seeped out of his lips. The two bamboo hat men were stunned by this sight. They were well aware of the bamboo hat leader's strength. In this battle, he had transformed into a golden giant and possessed peerless might. But in the end, none of them had expected that he would still lose against the Jingqi alliance lord. Although he isn't as strong as I am, the toughness of his organs are unimaginable. Not even my giant transformation can compare. If I hadn't seen it for myself, I wouldn't have dared to believe it. We were truly too careless this time. The bamboo hat leader said, This Jingqi alliance is too bold. A bunch of lowly ants actually dared to oppose us gods. Their audacity is unpardonable. Let's find a chance to completely annihilate this Jingqi alliance. The second bamboo hat man said, a chilling light in his eyes. Now is not the time to consider this matter. The bamboo hat leader waved his hand and immediately rejected the idea. The true lord will soon descend. If we cannot find the target and complete the mission before the true lord arrives, you all know the consequences. Buzz! The bamboo hat men paled at the mention of the true lord's arrival, a suffocating fear appearing in the depths of their eyes. My lord, then we. The other two bamboo hat men swallowed, no longer as sharp as before. Relax. The origin immortal mountain will appear soon. When the time comes, it won't be too late for us to deal with them. And if there are no accidents, our target will also appear there. Chapter 1394. Putting aside the men in black, the banners of the Jingqi League's temporary base fluttered in the wind, the image of the yin-yang symbol of the immortal crane. Everyone was busy cleaning up the aftermath of the battle. On the summit, Song Yuani's white tent had been blasted to smithereens, and a new tent was quickly erected. At this moment, Song Yuani and Xie Guangting were chatting. Can you tell me now? Just what is going on here? This time, if I hadn't arrived in time, I'm afraid that the group of experts you led would have been completely annihilated. When did such a formidable expert appear in the martial arts world? Xie Guangting solemnly said. The mood in the tent was solemn. Song Yuani said nothing, and his complexion was rather unsightly. Even though he had used the eternal spring mantra to save some of his disciples, 600 to 700 disciples had still died in this battle. This was a rather heavy loss for the Jingqi League, and 3 of its elders had even died. Not even in its battle with the 5 Ancestor Alliance had the Jingqi League suffered such heavy losses. No, to put it more accurately, no faction in the martial arts world dared to attack the Jingqi League in such a reckless and frenzied manner. This isn't a faction of the martial arts world. Song Yuani suddenly said, I'm just as confused as you are about the origins of these men in black, and they've never explained where they came from. But even so, I have a rough idea of what's going on. If I'm not mistaken, these people aren't coming for us. Oh, Xie Guangting raised an eyebrow, a look of surprise appearing on his face for the first time. Song Yuani said nothing, his profound gaze slowly turning to another part of the mountain. On the other side, Wang Chong was seated cross-legged in meditation when he suddenly sensed something, his heart thumping in his chest. Young Master Qingyang, Alliance Lord invites you. A moment later, a voice suddenly rang in his ears. A Zhengqi League disciple walked up to Wang Chong and stopped behind him. Oh, Wang Chong quirked an eyebrow. Some thoughts flashed in his eyes, but he soon calmed down. All right, I'll head over now. When Wang Chong reached the top of the mountain, he saw a large number of people gathered there. Xikong Yuanjia, Ouyang Changheng, the other elders of the Zhengqi League, and the many experts of the league, including Ji Andu, were all gathered around Song Yuani and the Zhengqi League Vice Alliance Lord, discussing something. Seeing Wang Chong coming over, there was a moment of silence on the mountaintop. Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat when he saw the formation on the mountain. However, he didn't say anything and calmly walked over. Paying respects to Alliance Lord, Wang Chong walked over and clasped his hands 3 or 4 paces away. Upon seeing Wang Chong, Song Yuani nodded. You've come. We were just discussing the ambush by the men in black. The league has suffered heavy losses this time, and young Master Qingyang was also involved. There is no harm in listening and seeing if you can remember anything. Perhaps you will be able to obtain an unexpected harvest. Yes. Wang Chong's eyes flashed, but he said no more. After clasping his hands and bowing, he stood to the side. The group quickly returned to their discussion. Alliance Lord, we've searched these people. There's nothing on their bodies that indicates their identities. We did manage to capture 2 people alive, but just like the others, they were all suicide soldiers. Before we could ask them a few questions, they bit through the poison sacs in their teeth and died. We've truly suffered heavy losses this time. Even with the abilities of our Zhengqi League, we couldn't find any clues about these people. But how could this be? That's right. You saw that giant at the end as well. With a single punch, he turned our stellar energy into stone. This isn't even within the realm of martial arts. In my view, they weren't humans at all but demons. They were using evil arts. This night had been far too shocking. For the first time, they sensed that there was such a powerful and mysterious power in the world. Now is not the time to think about the identities of these people. I just want to understand one thing. Why did these people attack us? At this moment, the Zhengqi League elder Xikong Yuanjia spoke in a coarse voice. His body was muscular, and his brow was furrowed with rage. This battle had been so inexplicable that he had no idea what was going on. Xikong Yuanjia didn't even understand why he was fighting them. These black-clothed men came and went inexplicably. Moreover, so many of the League's members had died. This battle had been a complete mess. That's right. Just what are they trying to do? There's no head or tail. It's completely confusing. Xikong Yuanjia's words caused the others to chime in. Every operation had a goal, but none of them had been able to figure out what these men in black were trying to do. For wealth, then they should be looking for the secular imperial court. For treasures, there were no treasures in the Zhengqi League's stronghold. Revenge, the Zhengqi League had never met these people before. The battle was over and both sides had suffered grievous casualties, but they still didn't know what the other party's goal was. There was probably nothing as foolish as this in the world. Hee hee. At this moment, a sinister and ear-piercing cackle resounded. You don't know what's going on, but I do. This burst of strange laughter came out of nowhere and instantly attracted everyone's attention. Ji Andu, what nonsense are you spouting? Hurry up and say what you've thought of. Stop acting all mysterious and mystifying. A nearby Zhengqi League elder couldn't help but curse. The Zhengqi League lord also couldn't help but frown, but he said nothing. Ji Andu, on the other hand, didn't seem to care. His shoulders trembled as he continued to chuckle. Haha, if it's not for wealth, treasure or revenge, and certainly not for sex, Then just what are they trying to do? You don't understand. And the reason is very simple. It's because these people weren't coming for us at all. Someone deliberately led these black-robed men to us. Someone is intentionally framing us. Whoosh! The elders and experts had been angrily glaring at Ji Andu at first, but Ji Andu's words instantly caused the crowd to erupt into an uproar. Wang Chong said nothing, only looked at Ji Andu, his heart sinking. He could already guess what Ji Andu was going to say next. Protector Ji, don't try to frighten us. Who's framing us, and who would dare to do so? Are you agitated? Why are you spouting nonsense here? A Zhengqi League elder rebuked. Ji Andu had come from the evil path, and was also a disciple of the demonic emperor. Although he had turned over a new leaf, there were still many people in the league who found him an eyesore. That's right. Protector Ji, what are you saying? Who in the world would be so bold as to frame our Zhengqi League? It wasn't that he didn't believe Ji Andu, but this matter was simply far too absurd. Ji Andu said nothing, but a contemptuous smile appeared on his lips. Let him speak. It was then that Sikong Yuanjia spoke. Sikong Yuanjia had suffered severe injuries in his battle with the bamboo hat man. If not for the fact that he cultivated the Zhurong divine art, he would have died to the bamboo hat man's blade long ago. He wanted to hear any version of the story. All he wanted to know was what the truth was. With Sikong Yuanjia's support, the crowd instantly fell silent. Haha, why don't all of you think about it? Our Zhengqi League has been around for so long, but when has it ever encountered an opponent like this? Let alone the Zhengqi League. All of you are renowned figures of the martial arts world. When have you ever encountered an opponent like this? Martial arts, techniques, and goals are all unknown. Moreover, we've been in the Northwest for quite some time now, so why did nothing happen until now? Haven't any of you realized that all this happened after an outsider appeared in our Zhengqi League? Ji Andu gave a sinister smile, as he shot a profound glance at Wang Chong at the back of the crowd. Whoosh! The mood instantly changed, and the crowd fell into an uproar. Upon hearing Ji Andu's words, they all turned to look at Wang Chong. Their eyes were filled with bewilderment. Ji Andu, you're slandering me. Do you think that I don't know what you're up to by framing young Master Qingyang like this? Before anyone else could speak, Song Yuran was the first to speak, her entire body seething with rage. That's right. Young Master Qingyang isn't this sort of person. Song Ju also stepped forward. Andu, don't speak nonsense. At this moment, a dignified voice rang out. Song Yuani, who had been silent all this time, spoke up. Young Master Qingyang is an honored guest of our Zhengqi League, and he even helped us before. How could he possibly harm us? Song Yuani's expression was calm, but his voice left no room for doubt. Song Yuran and Song Ju were elated to see Song Yuani speak, and they breathed sighs of relief. Alliance Lord, this one is not speaking nonsense, but this person is far too suspicious. And I'm not speaking nonsense to malign him. Ji Andu finally put on a serious expression, and clasped his hands in greeting upon hearing Song Yuani's words. I have a reason for saying that he's suspicious. The timing of his appearance is very suspicious. The men in black only attacked after he came to our Zhengqi League, but I won't say anything about that. Young Master Qingyang is well versed in all martial arts, and knows all the martial arts of the world like the back of his hand. On the first day, he used his mouth to command the disciples of our Zhengqi League to use sword formations to kill Black General Impermanence and force back the Black Yin ancestor. But tonight, so many people died in the league, so when did you see young Master Qingyang appear and command the experts of the league to deal with those men in black? For the mighty young Master Qingyang to hide at a time like this, isn't that suspicious? Chapter 1395. Buzz. The members of the Zhengqi League had originally believed that Ji Andu was spouting nonsense, that he had framed young Master Qingyang out of jealousy over his relationship with Song Yuran. But now that they thought about it, they realized that from start to finish, they truly had no idea where this young Master Qingyang was. It was like he had vanished into thin air. At this moment, even Ouyang Changheng, who had firmly believed in Wang Chong, couldn't help but glance at Wang Chong. Wang Chong said nothing, his expression calm. He neither spoke nor refuted, only waited for Ji Andu to finish speaking. Not only that, it's fine if young Master Qingyang didn't help us. But do any of you know where I found him at the height of the battle? The base of the mountain. I found him at the base of the mountain. At the time, this young Master Qingyang was preparing to sneak out of this place and flee. Ji Andu coldly snorted, his voice brimming with derision. Bang! Hearing this, the crowd was in an uproar. Only Song Yuanyi and Xia Guangting remained motionless and unmoved. How could this be? The surrounding people whispered to each other, their eyes staring at Wang Chong completely different from before. Not just that. Didn't any of you notice? When these people came up, they had a clear goal. They charged straight for the mountain. But when they didn't seem to find their target, they began to fight with us. What does our righteous alliance have that's worth them searching for? Ji Andu gave a sinister smile as he viciously stared at Wang Chong, his intentions obvious. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew past, and for a moment, it was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Everyone stared at Wang Chong's young Master Qingyang, swords drawn and bows drawn, the atmosphere extremely tense. At this moment, there were only 3 people who remained calm. One was the Lord of the Zhengqi League, Song Yuanyi, the Vice Alliance Lord Xie Guangting, and the final person was Wang Chong. Are you done speaking? Wang Chong clasped his hands behind his back and took a few steps forward. These 4 words immediately attracted everyone's attention. His expression was calm and composed. Even when surrounded by so many experts from the Zhengqi League, he did not show the slightest bit of fear. At the foot of the mountain, when he heard Song Yuanyi's invitation, Wang Chong already had some guesses. Ji Andu, Song Yuanyi, and even the Vice League Lord of the Zhengqi League were no pushovers. The former would always find trouble with him no matter what, and the latter would even plot against his master, the evil emperor, when he was at his peak. One could imagine how shrewd they were. These people were already suspicious of him, and now that something like this had happened, it was likely that he was the one to blame. He was afraid that if he gave a bad answer, all of the Zhengqi League experts around him would attack him today. Even though Song Yuanyi seemed to be standing on his side, and had even spoken up for him, Song Yuanyi was not a simple person. However, Wang Chong was sure that as long as he couldn't match up, the Zhengqi League master would be faster and more ruthless than anyone else. It seems like Protector Ji's prejudice against me has already reached an irreconcilable point. You want to kill me with just a few groundless words? He's really unscrupulous. Wang Chong glanced at Ji Andu. His heart skipped a beat, and he immediately had a bad feeling. Humph, I would like to see how you are going to quibble. Ji Andu sneered. On the first day I entered the Zhengqi League, Protector Ji misunderstood that I had designs on Miss Song, and wanted to attack me. In the end, Miss Song stopped him. And then he began to wonder if I was the real young Master Qingyang. Now, when the League is under attack and everyone is busy fighting, Protector Ji doesn't think of a way to deal with those men in black or stop them, but instead runs to the base of the mountain to find me. Protector Ji has truly put a lot of thought into this. As Wang Chong spoke, he glanced at Ji Andu and smirked. Thump. Ji Andu's heart thumped, and his face paled at Wang Chong's words. The surrounding elders and disciples of the Zhengqi League also had strange looks in their eyes. In this battle, the Zhengqi League had suffered grievous losses, and 600 to 700 disciples had fallen into eternal slumber. As for Protector Ji Andu, when he was needed the most, he had run off to find young Master Qingyang. There was simply no way he could explain this. Don't speak such nonsense. The entire mountain was filled with enemies, and I just happened to be heading there to provide reinforcements. Ji Andu harshly retorted. The surrounding elders all had strange expressions on their faces. There was no point in saying anything more at a time like this. Ji Andu truly was targeting young Master Qingyang, and there was no doubt about this. His explanation was feeble and weak, and no one believed him. I don't need to say more about whether it's true or not. Everyone knows what's true, Wang Chong said. There's no need for you to quibble. You didn't even show your face during the night raid, much less command our Zhengqi League disciples to deal with the men in black like you did last time. If there's an abnormality, There must be a monster behind it. Everyone was fighting with those men in black. But you were running away, even running down the mountain. You say that if those people didn't come for you, who else could it be? Moreover, the elders of the League bear witness to this matter. You can't deny it. Jianda coldly said. He had no intention of letting Wang Chong off, and his aura was overbearing. To think that Protector would dare to say such a thing. Wang Chong couldn't help but sneer. First, I'm not a disciple of the Zhengqi League, nor did I say that I would always stay here. It was Alliance Lord who invited me to stay. In other words, I had no obligation to help the Zhengqi League. Wang Chong sneered, his words causing the others to turn awkward. Although they were unpleasant to hear, young Master Qingyang was right. He had never been a disciple of the Zhengqi League, and it was up to him whether he wanted to help or not. The Zhengqi League had no right to demand this of him. And given the current situation, young Master Qingyang had just helped them deal with the Black Yin ancestor and Black General Impermanence, and now, the Zhengqi League was making things difficult for him. It was no wonder that he was so angry. Young Master Qingyang, don't be angry. We had no such intentions. A righteous alliance elder said, an extremely awkward expression on his face. And in the end, wasn't I at the base of the mountain to avoid you, Jiandu Protector Ji? Wang Chong coldly glared at Jiandu. The crowd fell into an uproar at Wang Chong's words. Brat, what nonsense are you spouting? Jiandu sternly said, his expression frigid. In his ears, Wang Chong's words were complete nonsense. Protector Ji has been brimming with hostility toward me from the very start. This battle was so intense. But Protector Ji didn't deal with those men in black, but took advantage of the chaos to deal with me, chasing me from the summit to the base of the mountain, even trying to kill me there. Protector Ji thinks that no one knows, but all of this has long been seen clearly by others. Wang Chong coldly said. Correct. The moment Wang Chong finished speaking, Song Ju jumped out of the crowd, a furious expression on his face. I saw this with my own eyes. Not only that, in order to deal with young Master Qingyang, Jiandu even used the yin-yang art that Alliance Lord has forbidden. Song Ju immediately explained what he had seen. Bang! Song Ju's words caused the surrounding elders and protectors to fall into an uproar. Even the emotionless and indifferent Vice Alliance Lord Xie Guangting of the Zhengqi League slightly frowned. The yin-yang art was an evil art, and it was the supreme art of the infamous demonic Emperor Zhang Wenfu. As a righteous faction, the Zhengqi League could not use this evil art. Jianda had told this many times, but he had still disobeyed. Not only that, the Zhengqi League owed young Master Qingyang a debt of gratitude, but for his own selfish desires, Jiandu had chased him all the way to the base of the mountain, and even tried to frame him. The righteous path despised such conduct. Countless eyes turned to Jiandu, their eyes brimming with disdain. Bastard! Don't listen to his nonsense. He's just quibbling. Jianda's face was pale, both shocked and furious. This reversal had happened far too quickly. Jiandu, do you still want to deny it? Young Master Qingyang lied, but does Song Ju lie as well? Song Yuran could no longer hold back. She glared at Jiandu, her face ashen and furious. She knew that Jiandu had some devious intentions, but she hadn't expected him to be so despicable. Protector Ji, you're truly too disappointing. We owe young Master Qingyang a helping hand, so how could you treat him like this? That's right. Even if you like Miss Song, you can't use such a despicable method. Everyone is dealing with those men in black. It's fine if you don't help, but you're fighting among yourselves. You're simply a disgrace to the righteous path. Protector Ji, how can I say this? The Zhengqi League elders sighed as they looked at Jiandu. Although the other Zhengqi League experts said nothing, the strange looks in their eyes said it all. Yuran, listen to me. It's not as you think. This fellow pretended to be young Master Qingyang, and didn't know any martial arts, but in truth, Jiandu was both shocked and furious. He had originally planned to expose Wang Chong, but he had never imagined that it would end up being used to criticize him. Jianda hated Wang Chong to the bone. If not for the fact that so many people were present, he would have charged forward and cleaved him apart with a palm. Enough! Song Yuani suddenly spoke with a thunderous roar, the iciness in his voice causing everyone to calm down. Alliance Lord! Everyone bowed at the cold and aloof Song Yuani. Song Yuani did not speak, but once he did, no one dared to refute his opinion. Chapter 1396. As Song Yuani spoke, he turned his head and shot a glance at Ji Andu. This glance caused Ji Andu to shiver and his heart to chill. He hurriedly lowered his head, his face pale. Alliance Lord, forgive me. In the future, this sort of matter is not to be mentioned again. Young Master Qingyang is our ally. I do not wish for this sort of thing to happen, understand? Song Yuani indifferently said. Andu understands. Ji Andu's heart chilled as he hurriedly lowered his head. Alliance Lord, our Zhengqi League suffered many casualties in this battle, and young Master Qingyang seems to have also been injured. Your eternal spring mantra is extremely profound, so there is no harm in taking a look at young Master Qingyang. Just as the atmosphere relaxed, a voice suddenly rang out. The Vice Alliance Master, Xie Guangting, who had been standing to the side without saying a word, suddenly spoke. These words had come without warning. Ji Andu had been prepared to turn and leave, but after taking 2 steps and hearing these words, he stopped as if realizing something. The other Zhengqi League elders and experts also felt their hearts thump, as if they had realized something. As for Song Yuan and Song Ju, they paled in unease. Many thanks, Vice Alliance Lord, but there is no need. This one's injuries are not a hindrance. An Alliance Lord has just experienced a major battle and has consumed a great deal of stellar energy. There is no need for Alliance Lord to worry about such minor injuries. Wang Chong bowed and spoke in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. There is no need for young Master to be so modest. Young Master was injured in our Zhengqi League, so it is only right that he expends a great deal of stellar energy. Brother Song, don't you agree? Xie Guangting turned his head to glance at Song Yuani, his expression indifferent. Brother Xie is correct. A little bit of stellar energy is not important, so there is no need for young Master Qingyang to decline. Song Yuani indifferently said. The two of them echoed each other. Nearby, Ji Andu had believed that he had lost, but when he heard these words, he seemed to think of something and a sinister smile appeared on his lips. Wang Chong, on the other hand, grimaced. Although it seemed like Ji Andu was the one who wanted to deal with him in today's gathering, it was actually Song Yuani who had been speaking up for him this entire time. In the end, everything was to make Xie Guangting say those words, and then test him in the name of healing. Clack! With the crisp sound of footsteps, Song Yuani expressionlessly stepped forward and began to walk toward Wang Chong. At this moment, even Ouyang Changheng and the others could vaguely see something. They all uneasily glanced at Song Yuani, and then at young Master Qingyang, but none of them dared to say anything. Once the Alliance Master made a decision, no one dared to object. In everyone's eyes, it was clear that Ji Andu's words weren't completely ineffective. Clack! Song Yuani took another step, this time even closer to Wang Chong. The indifferent look in Song Yuani's eyes made Wang Chong's scalp go numb, and alarm bells began to ring. Warning! Special event. User has inadvertently encountered a sect mission and is in mortal danger. The side mission Origin Immortal Art is on the verge of failure. Warning! Mission on the verge of failure. At almost the same time, the Stone of Destiny's voice rang out in Wang Chong's mind, urgent and brimming with danger. Song Yuani's strength was no trifling matter. Through the immortal universe eternal spring mantra, he was almost as strong as his master, the evil emperor. Wang Chong had yet to recover his strength, and his body was riddled with chaotic stellar energy of the great Yin-Yang heaven creation art. Although Wang Chong was doing his utmost to hide it, Song Yuani only needed to raise his hand and use the pretense of healing to circulate the stellar energy of the eternal spring mantra through Wang Chong's body to clearly understand what was going on. Once the great Yin-Yang heaven creation art was exposed, Wang Chong's identity would be revealed, and it was easy to imagine what would happen next. Before summoning Wang Chong, Song Yuanyi had arranged for 7 or 8 elders to be stationed at the base of the mountain to prevent Wang Chong from escaping. Now he and Xie Guangting were both standing guard on the summit. If the two of them worked together, not even the 3 bamboo hat men were a match for them, much less the injured Wang Chong. Even if Wang Chong wanted to escape, he wouldn't be able to. Pa! A slender finger as white as jade lightly tapped on Wang Chong's shoulder. At the same time, a majestic energy brimming with vitality gathered at Song Yuanyi's fingertip. Bang! In the blink of an eye, before Wang Chong could react, a majestic stellar energy erupted from Song Yuanyi's fingertip and surged into Wang Chong's body. It traveled through Wang Chong's meridians and dantian with astonishing speed. Song Yuanyi's eternal spring mantra seemed gentle and full of vitality in battle, but it was actually extremely tyrannical. It only took a few seconds for it to reach the depths of Wang Chong's body. And the situation within Wang Chong's body was like a mirror, rapidly being reflected in his mind. At this moment, time seemed to slow down countless times. 10 inches, 8 inches, 6 inches, 5 inches. In a short period of time, Song Yuanyi's stellar energy had invaded the majority of Wang Chong's body and was only a few inches from his dantian. As long as it entered his dantian, Song Yuanyi would be able to touch Wang Chong's great yin-yang heaven creation art. At that time, all of Wang Chong's secrets would be exposed. And given the relationship between Song Yuanyi and the demonic emperor, as long as he discovered the great yin-yang heaven creation art in Wang Chong's body, the result could be easily imagined. Warning! Warning! At the same time, Wang Chong's scalp felt like it was going to explode, and the Stone of Destiny's warning constantly resounded in his mind. Having just experienced a fierce battle, Wang Chong was now on the brink of life and death. In just a second, Wang Chong's identity would be exposed. Against the combined attacks of Song Yuanyi and Xie Guangting, only death awaited him. Buzz! Just as Wang Chong was preparing to fight to the death with Song Yuanyi and Xie Guangting, an unexpected voice suddenly resounded in his mind. Warning! User is about to die. Because the opponent is a creature of this world, this crisis has been caused by the binding and resistance of this world. As the controller of fate, user has one chance to be immune to the power of this world. Does user wish to? Just as Wang Chong was about to attack, a voice resounded in his mind. But this time, the Stone of Destiny's voice was completely different. Agree. Wang Chong had no time to ponder what was going on, and immediately agreed. But then, the inconceivable happened. An inconceivable energy suddenly appeared in Wang Chong's dantian, and rapidly expanded, enveloping all the stellar energy of the great yin-yang heaven creation art in Wang Chong's body. Then it rapidly contracted, compressing into a corner of his dantian. This transformation happened so quickly that it was completed before Wang Chong could react. Even Song Yuanyi's speed seemed incomparably slow in comparison. Even more inconceivable was that this energy was different from any energy Wang Chong had encountered before. It was as thin as paper, and at the same time, it did not have any attributes. It was like transparent water and colorless air. If Wang Chong hadn't been the one who had triggered all this, not even he would have noticed it. Bang! At almost the same time, his dantian quaked as Song Yuanyi's unique eternal spring stellar energy surged into Wang Chong's dantian like a flood and began to search his surroundings. Song Yuanyi was not just doing an ordinary inspection. His eternal spring stellar energy was like a massive wave, sweeping through every nook and cranny of Wang Chong's dantian. But a moment later, Song Yuanyi slightly frowned. It was clear that this was completely different from what he had imagined. How is it? Is young Master Qingyang's injury serious? Suddenly, a voice came from the side. Xie Guangting spoke at this moment. Hey, young Master Qingyang's injury truly isn't very serious. But to be injured in the base of our Jingxi alliance is a dereliction of duty on our part. As Song Yuanyi spoke, his expression became much better. As he spoke, the stellar energy of the eternal spring mantra flowed through Wang Chong's limbs and bones, healing all the meridians in his body that had been damaged by the cultivation defect. A few moments later, The stellar energy in Wang Chong's body was restored to its original state. Everyone says that young Master Qingyang's meridians are special, and today, I can see that this is indeed the case. It's just a pity for young Master's talent, Song Yuanyi said as he pulled back his palm. At the same time, the majestic stellar energy flowed back into his body. Perhaps it was just his imagination, but after this inspection, Song Yuanyi really did look at Wang Chong with a much gentler gaze. Seeing this scene, everyone let out a long sigh of relief, and the originally tense atmosphere around them eased up a lot. Only one person was bewildered, not daring to believe his eyes. This is impossible. At this moment, Ji Andu was the most shocked of all. He didn't dare to believe that Song Yuanyi's search had failed to find anything. Song Yuanyi was the Alliance Lord of the Jingqi Alliance, and possessed an unfathomable level of cultivation. This time, he was clearly suspicious of Wang Chong, so there was no way he would side with Wang Chong. What's going on here? Did I really make a mistake? Ji Andu was struck dumb, unable to say a single word. Half of the reason he had dealt with Wang Chong was because of Song Yuan, but the larger reason was that he had sensed from the start that there was something wrong with Wang Chong. At this moment, Ji Andu couldn't say a single word. Wonderful! Song Yuan and Song Ju could also sense this, and they were overjoyed. Alliance Lord Song, many thanks. The Eternal Spring mantra truly is wondrous. This one feels much better. At this moment, Wang Chong also bowed with a calm expression. His expression was calm, but his mind was drenched in cold sweat. This had been far too dangerous, and he had almost been exposed. A battle of life and death was certain to follow. Chapter 1397. Wait a moment. Alliance Lord. Ji Andu's face was brimming with unwillingness, and he seemed to want to say something more. But before he could continue to make things difficult for Wang Chong. Reporting. A roar came out of the darkness, accompanied by a cloud of dust. Everyone turned their heads and looked in the direction of the voice. In the darkness of the night, 2 or 3 figures could be seen approaching them at the speed of galloping horses. It's the scouts we sent out. Not far away, a sharp-eyed elder recognized it with a single glance. With this interruption, Ji Andu found himself unable to continue. Reporting. Alliance Lords, we've discovered traces of the Origin Immortal Mountain. A large number of people have gathered there, and by tomorrow at the latest, the Origin Immortal Mountain will officially appear. A few moments later, those Jingqi League disciples rushed from the base of the mountain to the summit and got down on one knee in front of Song Yuanyi and Xie Guangting. Buzz! Everyone's attention was instantly drawn away, and even Wang Chong's heart thumped as he turned to those Jingqi League disciples. The Origin Immortal Mountain has appeared. Master and the village chief are definitely there. Perhaps they're already there. Wang Chong quietly said to himself. When he had first arrived in the northwest, Wang Chong had heard of the Origin Immortal Mountain, but even now, Wang Chong had no idea what was going on. Everyone disperse and get ready. Once we're done, we'll immediately set out for the Origin Immortal Mountain. The great Yin-Yang Heaven creation art is inherently flawed, and the deeper one cultivates, the greater the flaw, and the greater the chance of cultivation defect. Demonic Emperor Zhang Wenfu has definitely appeared in the northwest this time, in pursuit of the Origin Immortal art. As long as we stand guard at the Origin Immortal Mountain, we'll definitely be able to capture him and kill him along with his henchmen. Song Yuanyi suddenly said, his eyes exuding a dazzling light. Alliance Master is right. The demonic Emperor Zhang Wenfu has killed too many people, and is the public enemy of all the righteous sections. Last time, we didn't manage to kill him. This time, no matter what, we must kill this demon to prevent future troubles. Xie Guangting, the deputy chief of the Jingqi League, suddenly took 2 steps forward and said, Yes. For a moment, everyone responded loudly and lowered their heads. The crowd on the summit quickly retreated, including Wang Chong and Ji Andu, leaving only Song Yuanyi and Xie Guangting, the 2 heavyweights of the Jingqi League. What's going on? Isn't it him? Since there were no outsiders around, Xie Guangting turned his head and suddenly spoke. I don't know either. Song Yuanyi frowned deeply, as if he had fallen into a dilemma. Maybe I guessed wrong. Xie Guangting's brow imperceptibly rose at these words. He was greatly surprised by these words. He had known Song Yuanyi for many years, and Song Yuanyi's intuition had always been very accurate, and was rarely wrong. Since he felt that there was a problem with this young master Qingyang, there was no way he was wrong. But this time, Song Yuanyi had said that he didn't know. This was the first time something like this had happened. What's going on? Is it really not him? Xie Guangting was confused, but Xie Guangting couldn't say anything to refute this. He had already probed his body, and given Song Yuanyi's cultivation level, there was no way he wouldn't be able to find a problem with this young master Qingyang. There's always a possibility. Perhaps this time, Yuanyi really made a mistake. Xie Guangting thought to himself. His furrowed brows slowly relaxed. On the southeast side of the mountain, Wang Chong sat down on a half-shattered rock, his robes fluttering in the wind. Phew! No one was paying attention to him, and now that he had relaxed, Wang Chong finally breathed a sigh of relief. It had been extremely dangerous, but in the end, he had still managed to escape. Just what's going on with this master of fate? Now that he had calmed down, Wang Chong immediately recalled what had just happened. Immune to the power of the world was something that had never happened before. And from what had just happened, it was clearly an ability of the Stone of Destiny's title. In the Battle of Talas, Wang Chong had defeated the Arabian Empire, killing millions of soldiers, and obtained the promotion of the Stone of Destiny's title. But Wang Chong had never known what use this title had. Not until that dangerous moment on the mountain. A moment later, Wang Chong communicated with the Stone of Destiny in his mind. Next to the 5 rewards, Wang Chong discovered something new. It was a mysterious golden wheel that was firmly grasped by a powerful golden palm. Looking through the wheel, and through the gap in the middle, he saw a few words written on the golden palm print. Master of Fate. Golden mist began to emerge from the palm and wheel, making them appear extremely mysterious. Wang Chong immediately had a thought, and as he communicated with this new palm and wheel, a new message appeared in Wang Chong's mind. Master of Fate, a special ability. Under special circumstances, one can be immune to attacks or threats related to the power of the world. This ability can only be used once a month, and it needs to be activated under special circumstances. Consumes 1 point of destiny energy. As Wang Chong read the information in his mind, he was dumbfounded. Even now, Wang Chong had not been able to unravel all of the Stone of Destiny's secrets. On the contrary, the more he learned, the more mysterious it became. Not even Wang Chong knew what other abilities the Stone of Destiny had. I've obtained the Stone of Destiny's title before, but I couldn't see any use for it. After winning this war and becoming the Master of Fate, I obtained a chance to be immune to the attacks of the world's origin energy. I wonder what kind of changes will occur if I advance further. Wang Chong had studied the Stone of Destiny for a very long time, using all sorts of methods to probe it, hoping to uncover even more secrets. But in the end, he had failed, so he could only give up. I'll worry about this later. The most important thing right now is to find Master. Wang Chong quietly said to himself. It had been some time since he had been separated from his master and the others. From the information he had obtained from the Zhengqi League, his master and Song Yuanyi had probably fought not too long ago. He wondered how they were doing. Moreover, if the old village chief and the others returned to the stone formation and discovered that he was not there, they would probably be worried. Tomorrow, I'll go with the Zhengqi League to the Origin Immortal Mountain. This is an excellent opportunity. I'll definitely run into Master there. Wang Chong quietly said to himself. Based on the reports from the Zhengqi League spies, everyone probably knew about the appearance of the Origin Immortal Mountain. There was no reason for his master to be unaware of such a major event. And this was the best opportunity for him to meet up with the village chief and the others. This was especially true now that Ji Andu and Song Yuanyi had made things difficult for him. After enduring this wave of suspicion, Wang Chong would be safe in the Zhengqi League. As this thought flitted through Wang Chong's mind, he quickly calmed down. As the east gradually brightened, the night quickly passed. With the first bird call, a Zhengqi League disciple quickly stood up from the summit and stretched his face ruddy. After a night of rest, these Zhengqi League disciples had finally recovered, and around them, more and more disciples stood up. The Alliance Lord has ordered that we immediately set out. Our target is the Origin Immortal Mountain. A loud voice suddenly resounded over the mountain. Soon, it was like a pebble being thrown into a lake, stirring up ripples. A moment later, the hundreds of Zhengqi League disciples surged down the mountain. Their target this time, the Origin Immortal Mountain. The people of the martial arts sects truly are different. Last night, the men in black attacked so many people that they lost their lives. But today they've all forgotten about it, as if nothing happened at all. Perhaps to the martial arts world, there are far too many vendettas, so no one feels much of a stir. Wang Chong mentally sighed. Young Master Qingyang, let's go. At this moment, a crisp voice rang out in his ear. At some point, Song Yuran and Song Ju had walked out from behind Wang Chong, and were speaking to him. Wang Chong nodded and quickly joined the army of the Zhengqi League, heading toward the place where the Origin Immortal Mountain was rumored to appear. Time slowly passed as they made their way to the northwest. There were few people in the area, and it seemed like the Zhengqi League was the only faction left in the northwest. It seems like all the factions have already received the news and are heading to the Origin Immortal Mountain. Wang Chong said to himself as he mingled in the crowd. There were no more accidents along the way, and the several hundred Zhengqi League disciples made their way toward their destination. Buzz! After traveling for several dozen li, the clamor of voices suddenly came from the distance. Reporting. A few moments later, a Righteous Alliance disciple flew over from the front. Alliance Lord, the Origin Immortal Mountain is up ahead. Understood. Keep a close watch. If there's any news, report immediately. At the center of the group, Song Yuani nodded slightly and solemnly said, Yes, Alliance Lord. With this order, the Zhengqi League disciples once more rushed forward. We're finally here. Wang Chong was nearby, and when he heard the scouts' report, he instantly felt a sliver of anticipation. The Origin Immortal art had been lost for several hundred years, and although he still didn't know the origins of this mysterious Origin Immortal Mountain, it was definitely inextricably linked to the Origin Immortal art. 8 li passed in the blink of an eye, and Wang Chong quickly caught sight of his destination. The vast area was densely packed with people. Countless people from different sects were gathered there, discussing spiritedly. Everyone was looking at the same place, silently waiting for something. Following their gazes, Wang Chong saw a dazzling light twisting and turning in the sky. Within this light, half of a mountain could be vaguely seen. This mountain was jagged as sharp as swords, and from the half of the mountain that had been revealed, the mountain below was assuredly extremely majestic. Chapter 1398. I can't believe it. What's going on here? Wang Chong quietly said to himself. Judging from the situation in the distance, this scene had been going on for some time now, and no one seemed to be able to explain it. Everyone hear my order. Advance at full speed. At this moment, a dignified voice resounded in his ear. With Song Yuani's order, all the Zhengqi League disciples began to advance at full speed. As the several hundred Righteous Alliance disciples charged forward, they exuded an aura that could topple mountains and overturn seas. Ah! The Zhengqi League! It's the Zhengqi League! Let's go! The Zhengqi League's people are here! The sight of the banners of the Zhengqi League fluttering in the wind, and the group behind them, made the people at the front look at them in awe, and retreat to the sides. In the martial arts world, the Zhengqi League was the undisputed #1 faction, the leader of the martial arts world. Song Yuani and Xie Guangding's reputations were like thunder to the ears, and there was almost no one in the martial arts world who did not know of them. Now that the Alliance Lord and Vice Alliance Lord had arrived, no one dared to lightly oppose them. The group of several hundred people surged forward like a shark into a pond, stirring up huge waves. The crowd automatically retreated, leaving enough space for the Zhengqi League. Alliance Lord, what should we do now? Sikong Yuanjia, Ouyang Changheng, and the others quickly gathered around Song Yuani and bowed. Immediately send people to investigate. Don't get careless, Song Yuani said. Alliance Lord, these people are waiting for the Origin Immortal Mountain to appear and steal the Origin Immortal Art. Should we get involved? Another elder asked. There are too many martial artists gathered here, and they'll have a major effect on the Zhengqi League. Given the Zhengqi League's usual style, we can just seal off this area. There's no rush. Song Yuani's expression was indifferent, his face expressionless. The Origin Immortal Art hasn't appeared in so many years, and now an Origin Immortal Mountain has suddenly appeared. This is far too sudden. This matter isn't as simple as it seems. Song Yuani's face was relaxed and carefree, but his eyes were deep and profound, seemingly able to see through all secrets. As the leader of the Zhengqi League, Song Yuani would never easily trust anyone, nor would he easily believe in something that fell from the sky. For Song Yuani, anything that was too great and came too easily would never be that simple. Yes, Alliance Master, Sikong Yuanjia and the others replied in unison. Also pay attention to the surroundings. If the Origin Immortal Mountain is here, then demonic Emperor Zhang Wenfu is definitely here as well. Search carefully. If you find any trace of him, kill him without mercy. As he finished speaking, Song Yuani's gaze turned cold, and his eyes revealed dense killing intent. All the experts of the Zhengqi League began to withdraw. Wang Chong could clearly hear all of this. Just like Song Yuani, Wang Chong was also searching for traces of his master, the evil emperor. There are too many people. Finding master won't be easy, Wang Chong quietly said to himself. Wang Chong was not too worried about Song Yuani, although this Zhengqi League Lord's eternal spring mantra was incredibly powerful and profound. Song Yuani had also been helpless against his master when he was still alive. Otherwise, he wouldn't have needed to use Ji Andu. Moreover, now that his master had returned to his peak, not even Song Yuani would necessarily be able to do anything to him. As time slowly passed, the several hundred disciples of the Zhengqi League gathered together, standing out like a crane among chickens. No one dared to get within 10 steps of them. Wang Chong looked around, trying to find traces of his master in the crowd, but neither Wang Chong nor the Zhengqi League found anything. Impossible. This region is only so big. Master can't not be here. And he can't cancel the plan, just because Song Yuani and Xie Guangting are here. Wang Chong thought for a moment, and then his eyes flashed as he quickly came up with an idea. Buzz! A moment later, Wang Chong's eyes flashed, and he quickly entered the world of the origin of energy. The scenery before him faded away, replaced by a bizarre and extremely complex world of energy. Countless energies of different shades and colors radiated from the bodies of the martial artists. Each martial artist was a resplendent source of energy and light, a magnificent sight in the world of the origin of energy. For Wang Chong, searching for his master's whereabouts through the perspective of energy was the most suitable method. In the world of energy, there were no living creatures, and vision was not limited by the naked eye. Most importantly, Wang Chong was very familiar with his master's aura. No matter how far away he was, in the world of energy, Wang Chong could identify him at a glance. But the next moment, Wang Chong's brows suddenly furrowed. This doesn't make sense. Is master not here? Wang Chong muttered to himself. In the world of the origin of energy, he looked around, but he couldn't find his master at all. Look! Just then, a loud shout came from beside him, quickly attracting Wang Chong's attention. Wang Chong turned his head and looked in the direction of the voice. He saw a figure suddenly rise from the ground among the densely packed crowd, like a bird, flying toward the ever-changing glow in the sky and the shadow of the half-exposed mountain peak. Ah! The crowd cried out in alarm. Everyone knew that the legends of the origin immortal art were fraught with danger. Putting aside the murderous fights over the treasure maps, just in the process of searching for treasure, many people had accidentally stumbled into some real and fake treasure troves, never to return. For a mountain to appear in the sky, accompanied by that glow, it was clear at a glance that it was fraught with danger. This scoundrel is dead for sure. The people on the ground tensed up at this sight, and even Wang Chong couldn't help but pay close attention. In the crowd, Zhengqi League Lord Song Yuanyi, Deputy Lord Xie Guangting, Elder Sikong Yuanjia, and Ouyang Changheng also subconsciously raised their heads. In midair, the lone martial artist was getting closer and closer to the mountain peak and the multicolored light. 100 feet, 60 feet, 30 feet, 20 feet. No matter which sect they belonged to, they all held their breath at this time. Time seemed to stop, but in the next moment that person's speed became slower and slower, slower and slower, until finally, he actually fell straight down. Boom! The crowd roared with laughter, their eyes brimming with derision. Who's there? He dares to show off with this little bit of strength. Just get the hell back home. Ha ha ha. The crowd roared with laughter, making no attempt to conceal their scorn and mockery. From what had just happened, that unaffiliated martial artist was clearly lacking in strength, which was why such a result had occurred. With so many people watching, and even the #1 faction of the martial arts world, the Zhengqi League, had come, he had truly made a fool of himself and become a laughingstock. Out of the way, I'll do it. Amidst the loud laughter, another man leaped into the air and headed towards the multicolored light and the mountain peak in midair. This time, this martial artist clearly jumped higher and faster than the previous martial artists. However, in the next moment, just as everyone was filled with anticipation, the same thing happened again. When he was still several dozen feet from the mountain, the martial artist's speed began to slow, and then he plummeted to the ground. Ha ha ha! The laughter of the crowd grew even louder, and all the martial artists gathered here were jeering at those two. Only Wang Chong slightly furrowed his brow, vaguely sensing that something was wrong. Following that, more and more martial artists leapt into the air, pouncing towards the Origin Immortal Mountain from all directions. 1, 2, 3. Despite so many martial artists, not a single one of them had managed to touch the Origin Immortal Mountain. The sounds of mockery grew louder and louder. They were all mocking these people for their lack of strength, yet they dared to show off in front of so many people. But gradually, 30 martial artists of the martial arts world began to use various methods to approach the mountain, throwing their weapons or unleashing their stellar energy. But all of them ended in failure. Gradually, the crowd began to feel that something was wrong. Alliance Lord, why don't we try? An expert of the Zhengqi League respectfully said to Song Yuanyi. There's no need. Song Yuanyi held his hands behind his back and indifferently said, his eyes shining with a perceptive light. That's a powerful seal. It's not that these people are lacking in strength, but that they can't approach under the control of the seal. Clap. The air exploded. No one noticed how Song Yuanyi had attacked. A moment later, a crystal-like strand of energy shot through the air toward the Origin Immortal Mountain. Rumble. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. This time, everyone could clearly see it. When it was still 1 zhang from the Origin Immortal Mountain, Song Yuanyi's finger energy became motionless in the air, as if it had come to a standstill. Ripples spread out from the tip of the finger qi. At first, the ripples were not obvious, like a light drizzle. But later on, they turned into a violent storm in the blink of an eye. Worn down by an invisible energy, Song Yuanyi's energy was instantly obliterated. Even in the final moment, Song Yuanyi's energy had not been able to get past 10 feet. Swish! When only half of the energy was left, all the energy was sucked away. Whoosh! The crowd was in an uproar. And even the Zhengqi League expert who had spoken was stunned. The Zhengqi League Lord Song Yuanyi was publicly acknowledged as the #1 expert of the righteous path. One could easily imagine the power of his energy, but not even someone of Song Yuanyi's strength had been able to break the seal. The supreme and infinite Origin Immortal Art is the #1 technique of the Central Plains, and its creator was the Origin Immortal Lord. This person's origins are mysterious, and it's said that he was an expert from the Spring and Autumn and Warring States periods. Besides being a formidable martial artist, he was also publicly acknowledged as a formation grandmaster, that invisible energy that prevents people from approaching and nullifies all that stellar energy must have been a formation that he had laid down beforehand. Although martial arts flourished in the Central Plains, formations have slowly declined, and many powerful formations have long since been lost. If my guess is correct, that mountain and glow in the sky are a powerful formation laid down by the Origin Immortal Lord. We know nothing about this, so we must not act recklessly. Chapter 1399. Everyone's hearts trembled at Song Yuanyi's words. Formations were both real and fake, using the natural energy of the world. They were completely different from the energy of a martial artist. If one recklessly attacked without proper preparation, one might end up being harmed. Nearby, Wang Chong had heard the conversation between Song Yuanyi and the Jingqi League expert, and he gave a slight nod. He had come to the same conclusion as Song Yuanyi. This truly was an extremely powerful formation, but Wang Chong sensed that it was not as simple as a formation. The moment Song Yuanyi had attacked, he had also sensed something else. Boom! Just as Zhang Xian was deep in thought, something strange happened. The ground suddenly shook, and a powerful aura approached from the distance. The Five Ancestor Alliance, it's the Five Ancestor Alliance. A panicked shout came from afar. Thousands of feet away, a free warrior stood on a high place. He glanced behind him, and immediately ran down in panic. It was as if he was running away from the plague. Reporting. A few moments later, a Zhengqi League disciple who had been scattered around the perimeter flew over, and got down on one knee in front of Song Yuanyi and Xie Guangting. 7 or 8 li behind us, we've discovered people from the Five Ancestor Alliance, led by the Black Yin Ancestor, heading in our direction. They have a lot of people, with a preliminary estimate of 400 to 500. Awa! The kneeling Jingqi League disciple was still speaking, but a moment later, strange cries like the wailing of ghosts came from the distance. Soon after, a huge dark red flag rose from the horizon and appeared in everyone's field of vision. 5 savage ghost heads were embroidered on this banner, and from a distance, it exuded an indescribable darkness and evil. Buzz! At the sight of this flag, the crowd instantly burst into an uproar. Numerous figures turned ghastly pale, and their faces were filled with terror as they retreated, as if they were avoiding a snake or a scorpion. Hurry and retreat. The Black Yin Ancestor kills without batting an eye. Everyone be careful. Damn it, why are these demons here? The people of the Five Ancestor Alliance have committed all sorts of evil, and running into them is the misfortune of 8 lifetimes. I don't want this Origin Immortal art anymore. The cultivators who had gathered here broke out in cold sweat. Some of the cultivators who had nothing to do even turned around and ran away, hurriedly escaping from this place. If the Jingqi League could be said to be at the zenith of its might in the martial arts world, where no one dared to challenge it, and everyone feared it, then everyone feared the vicious and merciless Five Ancestor Alliance. That feeling was like falling into the deepest nightmare. The 5 ancestors of the Five Ancestor Alliance were all powerful and irascible. Enraging them would only result in death. In an instant, the entire area was in chaos. The Five Ancestor Alliance moved with incredible speed, and it only took a few moments for them to appear nearby, heading right for the Jingqi League. The Righteous Alliance disciples at the very back of the line watched as the Five Ancestor Alliance experts surged toward them and began to retreat. Song Yuanyi, now that this old man has recovered all his strength, let's have a fair duel, one-on-one. All of a sudden, a loud and clear voice reverberated through the world. Boom! A roiling black stellar energy shot through the air toward the banner of the Jingqi League. Luo Qiyin, you really haven't changed at all. Song Yuanyi calmly flicked his finger, sending a bolt of energy flying through the air toward the Black Yin Ancestors' black stellar energy. Rumble! There was an explosion of stellar energy, and the 2 bolts of stellar energy vanished into thin air. Kiki Song Yuanyi, it seems like you've used up quite a bit of stellar energy. With a strange laugh, a massive black silhouette, seething with evil energy, rose from the ground and thrust out a palm. Seething stellar energy, dark and sinister, slammed down like steel. But this palm was not aimed at the banner of the Jingqi League, but at Song Yuanyi. No matter how much I've used up, it's still more than enough to deal with you. Song Yuanyi's icy voice resounded through the world. Before he finished speaking, he had already risen from the ground, his eternal spring stellar energy, surging toward Luo Qin like a tide. Boom boom boom. In a few short moments, the two had exchanged tinsome blows. Both Song Yuanyi and the Blacking Ancestor were top-class titans of the martial arts world, and their stellar energy was as vigorous as steel. In a flash, with Song Yuanyi and the Blacking Ancestor at the center, a fierce storm swept through the area, the air seeming to transform into massive waves that roared and thrashed. Boom! The earth quaked as the waves of energy in the sky crashed down, exploding into dust and rubble. Ah! Cries of alarm rang out as the surrounding martial artists began to retreat, as if avoiding snakes and scorpions. Given the strength of Song Yuanyi and the Blacking Ancestor, if they were struck by the stellar energy of their clash, only death would await them. Song Yuanyi, let this old man try you. Right at this moment, a cold laughter resounded. The voice was filled with an indescribable darkness and evilness. Before he had even finished speaking, without the slightest warning, countless specks of dust began to vibrate within a radius of several li. Then, they began to rise from the ground, turning the entire area into a sea of dust. At almost the same time, cries of alarm could be heard as the martial artists, including the experts of the Righteous Alliance, grimaced as they sensed that the stellar energy in their bodies had suddenly slowed. What a powerful turbid energy! Alarmed, Wang Chong raised his head in the direction of the voice. Just as he sensed, a huge amount of turbid air suddenly burst out from the ground, within a radius of several hundred feet, filling the entire void. This turbid energy was the most foul kind of energy. It had not been refined in any way, and it was completely incompatible with the stellar energy of a martial artist and the clear qi and spiritual energy of the world. Even the qi of the evil path martial artists was much lighter and more nimble. Any martial artist, whether righteous or evil, would find their stellar energy circulating much slower once they were affected by this turbid energy. Even Wang Chong was affected, but with a thought, Wang Chong immediately gathered this turbid energy into the Yongquan point at the bottom of his foot and sent it into the ground. Myriad Ghost Ancestor. Cries of alarm resounded through the air as countless martial artists retreated in fear, their expressions even more fearful than when Blacking Ancestor Luo Qin had appeared. Rumble! A moment later, black smoke began to churn and ghosts wailed. Behind the 5 Ancestor Alliance disciples, a figure wearing a loose robe rose from the ground and attacked Jingqi League Lord Song Yuanyi. Kree! With a shrill cry, the myriad ghost ancestor clapped his hands together. In an instant, the black qi on the ground surged forward like rivers flowing into the sea, twisting and transforming into countless ghostly soldiers, ghostly generals, ghostly pawns, ghostly skeletons, and even ghostly kings and ghostly demons. All of them howled mournfully. The myriad ghost ancestor's palm was like a raging sea, rumbling toward Song Yuanyi. At this moment, the turbid energy in the world became thousands of times more intense, so dense that it was suffocating. More importantly, everyone could sense an enormous attractive force in the air, as if countless demons and ghosts were madly sucking at them. But what these things were sucking at was not energy, but the souls of martial artists. Myriad ghosts pilgrimage great Enart. Everyone retreat. Amidst the crowd, an idol cultivator shouted loudly, then turned around and fled frantically. Madness and fear were contagious, and the surrounding crowd began to push and shove at each other like beasts. Some martial artists, unable to escape in time, even leaped over the heads of their opponents. Bang bang bang! The surrounding martial artists, including the disciples of the 5 Ancestor Alliance, were unable to dodge in time and fell to the ground like wooden stakes. Their flesh rapidly withered, and before they died, their eyes were wide open as if they had been struck by extreme terror. Damn it! Myriad ghost ancestor, I'll deal with you! A furious roar resounded through the air, and then a figure rose from the ground. Xia Guangting pressed down with his palm, sending out an enormous energy that collided with the myriad ghost ancestors' myriad ghosts' pilgrimage great een art. With the sound of the earth cracking apart, the boundless een chi that the myriad ghost ancestor had released was completely torn apart, and countless cracks appeared on it. Even the ghost soldiers, ghost generals, ghost soldiers, and ghost demons were torn to shreds. Bum bum bum. Song Yuani versus the Black Een ancestor, and Xie Guangting versus the myriad ghost ancestor fiercely battled in the air. But a moment later, there was an explosion of stellar energy, as Song Yuani and the Black Een ancestor retreated. At almost the same time, the myriad ghost ancestor, Pale Wanchong, spun around and landed on the banner of the myriad ghost sect. Only now did everyone get a clear look at his appearance. This infamous and vicious individual of the Five Ancestor Alliance had a hooked nose, skin as black as iron, and hands that were slightly curled like bird claws. But the deepest impression of all was his pair of cold, pitch-black eyes that seemed terrifying to the extreme. On the other side, Xie Guangting gently floated down from the sky like a leaf, not stirring up a single speck of dust. The two stared at each other, the air frozen. Ha ha ha, Song Yuani. The people of the martial world say that you have a pair of wise eyes that can see through the finest details, but there is something that you might not know. The Black Een ancestor, Luo Qin, suddenly broke the silence. He took 2 steps forward, gave a sinister smile, and then leaped into the air. While still in the air, he unleashed a roiling black stellar energy that shot toward Song Yuani like a meteor crashing into the moon. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.